Chapter 4058. Fu Ming was also rather nervous. He looked at the two women and said, "Wuching, Fei Fei, have you prepared the temporary teleportation array on you? If there's a situation, remember to use the temporary teleportation array immediately." Jian Wuching and Lung Feifei hurriedly nodded. Suddenly, a shrill scream sounded from afar, scaring Fu Ming so much that he almost lost his grip on the bead in his hand. This scream sounds like the Ghost King's incarnation. Could it be that there's something wrong with the Ghost King's incarnation? Lung Feifei asked in surprise. Could it be that that fellow defeated the Ghost King's incarnation? Jian Wuching said in a low voice. Fu Ming frowned and said in a low voice, "That's impossible. No matter how weak the Ghost King's incarnation is, it's still an ancient star transformation expert. That fellow is indeed powerful, but it's not enough to defeat the Ghost King. At most, he has the upper hand." Although Jian Wuching and Lung Feifei felt uneasy, they agreed with Fu Ming's point of view. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, poisonous gas swept up like a hurricane above the originally calm swamp, and the small temple standing in the middle of the swamp surged with a terrifying aura and pressure like a tide. The eyes of the ghost god statue in the small temple emitted a terrifying scarlet light. "Damned human! Bastard human! How dare you kill this king's incarnation? If this king succeeds in escaping, I will definitely make you die without a burial ground." A terrifying and dignified voice came from the ghost god statue. Fu Ming, Jian Wuching, and Lung Feifei watched this scene in horror. They hurriedly retreated, leaving the small temple. They naturally knew that the owner of this voice was the Ghost King. At the same time, they were shocked by the Ghost King's words. They did not expect that not only would the Ghost King's incarnation be defeated, but it would also be killed by Zhuowen. This was too unbelievable. Who is that fellow? Is he really so strong? Fu Ming and the other two had the same thought. The Ghost King's voice was filled with exasperation. After a round of scolding, he finally calmed down and looked at Fu Ming and the other two with his scarlet eyes. "Who are you? Why have you come to this king's sealed place?" The Ghost King's tone was unfriendly as he looked at Fu Ming and the other two coldly. If his clone had not been killed by Zhuowen, given his current furious state, he would definitely attack Fu Ming and the other two to vent the hatred in his heart. Fu Ming hurriedly said, "Senior Ghost King, don't misunderstand. The three of us have no ill intentions. This time, we are here to help you break the seal." The Ghost King was stunned. He looked at the three people in surprise and sneered. "Help me break the seal? You have the nerve to say that my seal was created by your ancestor, Huxley. You're Huxley's juniors. How can you have a way to break the seal for me? Do you think I'll believe that?" Fu Ming, on the other hand, was not angry. He said calmly, "Senior Ghost King might have misunderstood us. We are not Huxley's men, but from other clans. The reason why I helped Senior break the seal is to cooperate with Senior." The Ghost King was silent for a while before he sneered. "Your goal is to kill with a borrowed knife, right? You want to use me as a knife to deal with Huxley for you." Fu Ming smiled and said, "Senior is scheming and astute. Our little scheme naturally can't escape your eyes. But our cooperation is a win-win situation. Are you going to refuse?" With that, Fu Ming remained standing on the spot with a smile on his face. He knew that the Ghost King was a smart person and would never refuse to cooperate with them. Moreover, the Ghost King had a deep hatred for Huxley, even if they did not ask the Ghost King for help. After breaking the seal, the Ghost King would find Huxley to settle the score. This was something that the Ghost King would definitely do. Even if the Ghost King knew that they were using him, he would still not reject them. The seal on this king's body was sealed by a reclusive ancestor of Huxley. Moreover, the generations of clan leaders would strengthen the seal on this king. Do you think you 3 brats can break the seal on this king? The Ghost King sneered. Fu Ming smiled. Fu Ming smiled. He knew that the Ghost King was tempted. He raised his right hand and showed the black gold bead in his hand. He smiled and said, "This is the origin word-breaking bead. It can break all seals. It can even break the seal on your body. It just might take some time." The Ghost King stared at the word-breaking bead in Fu Ming's hand with bright eyes, a sharp glint in them. He had naturally heard of this bead before. It was extremely rare, and there was only one in the world. It could break all seals and restrictions. Of course, the stronger the seal and restriction, the longer the bead would take to break it. For example, the Ghost King's seal was too strong. Even with the help of this bead, it would take at least half a month. "Tell me, what do you need this king to do?" the Ghost King said calmly. "It's very simple. Join forces with our 3 clans to deal with Huxley and exterminate his clan." Fu Ming smiled sinisterly. The Ghost King nodded. He was not surprised by Fu Ming's request. "I agree to this request. Give me the origin word-breaking bead." However, Fu Ming shook his head and said with a smile, "Senior Ghost King, you and I are not fools. The credibility of a verbal agreement is not enough. You have to sign a soul contract with our 3 clans." With that, Fu Ming tapped his glabella with his right hand. A blazing golden light surged out from his glabella. The powerful soul power interweaved into an illusory golden contract in the air. Upon closer inspection, one could see densely packed golden words on the golden contract. On the golden contract, the souls of the 3 clan leaders have already left their respective marks. Only you, Senior Ghost King, are left. As Fu Ming spoke, he pointed at the Ghost King's temple with his right hand. The golden contract landed lightly in the temple. After reading it, the Ghost King was silent for a long time. "Aren't you 3 clans a little too much? Not only do you want this king to help you deal with Huxley, but I also have to serve your 3 clans for 1,000 years. Do you really think this king is easy to bully?" The Ghost King said angrily. Fu Ming, on the other hand, was calm and composed. He smiled faintly and said, "Senior Ghost King, you can choose not to accept it, and in return, we naturally won't give you the origin word-breaking bead." The Ghost King's expression was extremely ugly as he said coldly, "Are you threatening me?" Fu Ming hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Senior Ghost King, please calm down. How would this junior dare to threaten you? This is the idea of the 3 great clans patriarchs, and we are just following their instructions. If Senior Ghost King can't accept it, this junior won't force it." The Ghost King fell silent again. This time, it was a long silence. Fu Ming and the other 2 were also very patient. They stood there silently waiting for the Ghost King's reply. About an hour later, the Ghost King, who had been silent, finally spoke again. Chapter 4059. Swoosh. The soul contract turned into a golden light and flew out of the small temple. It appeared in front of Fu Ming and the other 2 and revealed a golden piece of paper. Fu Ming held the soul contract in his right hand and looked down at the bottom right corner of the contract. There was indeed a pitch-black mark there. If one looked carefully, the shape of this pitch-black mark was actually the head of the ghost god in the small temple. "Thank you for your hard work, Senior Ghost King." Fu Ming nodded in satisfaction and then kept the soul contract back into his soul. "Now, you can hand over the origin word breaker bead to this king." The Ghost King's sinister voice sounded. "Of course." Fu Ming cupped his hands towards the small temple like a gentleman, and then placed the black gold bead in his hand beside the ghost god statue. Fu Ming and the other two could clearly see strange pitch-black tentacles surging out of the ghost god statue and wrapping around the black gold bead. Senior Ghost King, after you break out of the seal, our 3 great clans look forward to working with you. We won't disturb Senior anymore. Goodbye. After Fu Ming finished speaking, he led Lung Feifei and Jian Wuqing to look at the small temple warily, and then slowly retreated. After they successfully left the swamp, the 3 of them were like birds startled by the twang of a bow. They quickly fled in the direction away from the swamp at an extremely fast speed. Not long after Fu Ming and the other 2 left, black fog rolled in the huge swamp, as if some powerful force was stirring up the black fog in the swamp. Jin Shui Clan, God's Eye, and Purple Mirage, you really set up a huge trap for me to fall into. After this king escapes, I will definitely not let you off easily. A sinister voice like that of an evil spirit came faintly from the depths of the swamp, revealing the anger in the Ghost King's heart. Tens of thousands of feet away, in the prison, after Zhuowen stepped into the tower, he realized that the inside of the tower was actually more dangerous than the outside. It was filled with layers of traps. Although he was vigilant, he still fell for it several times. Fortunately, he was strong, and his array formation skills were indeed superb. He resolved the many traps in the tower without any danger. The next floor is the top floor of the tower. Master should be imprisoned here. Zhuowen stopped at the bottom of a spiral staircase. He looked up at the bronze door at the end of the staircase, which was covered with complicated patterns. He could not hide the excitement in his eyes. As long as he could break open this bronze door, he would be able to save Shan Lingyun. His goal of sneaking into Huxley was finally about to be achieved. Zhuowen made a grabbing motion with his right hand, and a beam of purplish-gold light condensed in his palm, turning into a purplish-gold sword. He then leapt into the air and appeared in front of the bronze door. Slash! With a slash of his sword, purplish-gold sword rays seeped out like raindrops, densely packed and pouring down on the bronze door. Rumble! The moment the sword chi landed on the bronze door, there was a thunderous explosion. The sword chi, which was as dense as the stars, seemed to be endowed with intelligence. They scrambled to gather at the center of the bronze door. The bronze door was also quite extraordinary. The moment the sword chi hit it, the dense patterns on its surface lit up. What was more strange was that as the patterns became brighter, they actually left the bronze door and floated in midair. With lightning speed, they attacked the sword chi and resisted the attack of the sword chi. It actually blocked it. Zhuowen was shocked. He originally thought that one slash of his sword would be enough to break the bronze door. Now, it seemed that he had underestimated the bronze door. Looking at the weakening sword chi in front of the bronze door, Zhuowen's gaze became as sharp as a knife. He bent his right wrist, and the divine power in his body gathered in the purplish-gold divine sword in his palm. However, the moment his divine power gathered to the maximum, he slashed out with his right hand. The blade of the purplish-gold divine sword sliced through the air and made a thunderous sound. Heaven and earth primordial one-line sky. Zhuowen used his swordsmanship. The power of this slash was much stronger than before. There was not too much sword chi in this slash. Instead, he gathered all his power into one streak of sword chi. Crack! This streak of sword chi seemed to be able to split the heavens and the earth. Its power was so great that the countless patterns surrounding the bronze door shattered like glass. Then there was a continuous cracking sound. The remaining power of the sword chi broke through the patterns and shattered the bronze door. Countless bronze powder scattered on the stairs. The final obstacle of the last level of the tower was finally broken. Zhuowen was excited. He walked step by step to the last level of the tower. When he reached the highest level, he found that the space inside was not big. What he saw were densely packed black chains. These black chains were not real. They were formed by extremely corrosive ghost chi. The entire space was emitting a pungent stench. In the center, where the chains were the most densely packed, countless chains were entangled together to form an oval black cocoon-like object. Zhuowen's eyes were sharp. He immediately saw that there was an extremely powerful seal on the surface of the cocoon-like object. Zhuowen opened the heavens, eye between his eyebrows. He looked through the void and saw the scene at the core of the cocoon-like chains. Master, when he saw that a little girl was sealed in the core of the cocoon-like object, his eyes instantly turned red. He saw Shan Lingyun's petite body curled up in the center of the cocoon-like object. Her hands were hugging her knees. Although her eyes were open, they had lost the vigor that a living person should have. What made Zhuowen even angrier was that Shan Lingyun's limbs, shoulder blades, abdomen, and other body parts were all pierced through by the chains. Her blood had already dried and turned black. It coagulated at the wounds like blooming black roses. Zhuowen closed the heavens, eye between his eyebrows. He took a deep breath and forcibly suppressed the anger in his heart. Master, I will get you out of here immediately. Zhuowen calmed down. He stretched out his right hand and moved his fingertips, forming many complicated seals. Although the cocoon-like chain's seal was powerful, it did not exceed heaven-breaking stage 9. With his half-step eternal level array Dao, it was not difficult to break this seal. Crack, crack, crack. In less than a moment, the cocoon-like chain's seal was broken. The entangled black chains collapsed and shattered into countless black fragments. Shan Lingyun, who was originally trapped in the chains, fell from midair to the ground. Zhuowen took a step forward. He stretched out his hands and hugged Shan Lingyun. The moment he released Shan Lingyun, a deep chill burst out from his eyes. Chapter 4060. Zhuowen recalled Shan Lingyun's innocent look when he first met her. It was a stark contrast to now. This contrast ignited the flames of fury in Zhuowen's heart. He checked Shan Lingyun's body and realized that her vitality was almost depleted. She was like a candle that was about to be extinguished. Although Shan Lingyun's eyes were open, her consciousness was in a mess. She was in a daze. He knew that Shan Lingyun did not have much lifespan left after performing the great language spiritual skill for him, but she still had 100 years of lifespan left. She would not end up like this. Given Shan Lingyun's current state, it would be a miracle if she could hold on for another half a year. Without a doubt, Shan Lingyun's lifespan was shortened so quickly because of the Ghost King Ridge and Lu Rinjue. Zhuowen took out many top-notch divine herbs from the parallel dimension and used the divine fire to refine them into medicinal liquid. Then, he transferred the refined medicinal liquid into Shan Lingyun's body. Shan Lingyun's pale face started to become rosy under the effects of the medicine. Her complexion looked much better. The injuries on Shan Lingyun's body were also gradually recovering. For 3 days and 3 nights, Zhuowen stayed by Shan Lingyun's side and continuously refined the medicinal liquid to treat Shan Lingyun's injuries. He did not hesitate to use his own origin source energy to pass it to Shan Lingyun. Finally, Shan Lingyun, who was on the brink of death, recovered a little. Her weak aura also became stronger. Shan Lingyun's eyes were slightly closed, but she was still in a coma. Master's injuries and hidden illnesses have been cured, but the loss of lifespan. Zhuowen looked at Shan Lingyun sadly and muttered to himself. He could heal her injuries, but he could not recover the loss of lifespan. After leaving the Ghost King Ridge, I have to get the limitless longevity as soon as possible. Zhuowen frowned and was anxious. He could not wait to leave the Ghost King Ridge. Unfortunately, the time limit of the Ghost King Ridge was 1 month. He had to stay for 1 month before he could be transferred out of the Ghost King Ridge. And now, only half a month had passed. Zhuowen was helpless. He gently placed Shan Lingyun in the house at the central lake in the parallel dimension. Xiao He, take good care of her for me. Zhuowen summoned Xiao He and only left the great world after exhorting her repeatedly. After doing this, Zhuowen left the place of imprisonment and headed for the periphery of Ghost King Ridge. Since there were still more than 10 days before the teleportation, he planned to stay in the periphery of the Ghost King Ridge during this time. After running for about half a day in the Ghost King Ridge, Zhuowen suddenly stopped on a huge black rock. At this moment, he sensed that the array disk he had given to Sa Mei had been activated. Looks like junior sister Sa Mei is in danger? Zhuowen frowned. With Sa Mei's strength, it would be difficult for her to encounter any life or death crisis if she stayed in the periphery of the Ghost King Ridge. But now, Sa Mei had activated his disk array. Clearly, the former had encountered a huge crisis that was difficult to resolve. He then checked the communication jade talisman at his waist. He didn't receive any news from Sa Mei. Since the disk array had been activated, and there was no distress signal, he could not help but think about it. There was only one possibility. Sammy was in a much greater danger than he had imagined. She couldn't even send out a distress signal. Fortunately, Zhuowen had left a trick up his sleeve on the disk array, leaving a hidden temporary teleportation array on it. He took out an array flag and released it. A blazing white light gushed out of the array flag, drowning Zhuowen like a tide. In the periphery of the Ghost King Ridge, in a vast stone forest. In the stone forest, there were huge stone pillars that required 10 people to wrap their arms around them. The surface of these stone pillars was engraved with all kinds of ghosts and gods. The stone pillars, as a whole, gave people a sense of age and weight. In the ruins of a palace in the north of the stone forest, 3 people were gathered. With the 3 people as the center, there was a mysterious purple energy ripple within a radius of 10 feet. This energy ripple was a semicircle around the 3 people, which happened to include the ruins where the 3 people were. The 3 people were 2 women and a man. One of them was an elf woman with pointed ears, holding a palm-sized disc array in her hand. The source of the purple energy that formed the barrier was the disc array in the elf woman's hand. Junior Sa Mei, what should we do? The man beside the elf woman asked with a pale face. The elf woman and the man were Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng. After parting ways with Zhuowen, Sa Mei met Tuo Sheng not long after. The 2 of them walked hand in hand. The other young woman was Fleeting Time, the disciple of Fire God King, one of the 9 kings of Hushu. Fire God King was ranked 3rd among the 9 kings of Hushu. As the disciple of Fire God King, Fleeting Time's strength was one of the best among the younger generation in Huxley, second only to Lei Ling and Bingyu. And now Fleeting Time, who was ranked 3rd among the younger generation in Huxley, was in a very bad state. Her hair was disheveled, her clothes were ragged, and her face was as pale as snow. What was more terrifying was that black poisonous blood was flowing out of her orifices. She looked like a ferocious ghost. Senior Tuo Sheng, I don't know what to do either. I've already sent messages to Senior Zhuowen many times, but he hasn't replied to me even once. Sa Mei was at a loss. She held on to the disc array while using her divine energy to keep Fleeting Time alive. Tuo Sheng was doing the same. Fleeting Time was on the verge of death. If they did not do this, Fleeting Time would die immediately. Yo, you've sent quite a lot of messages. There are dozens of them. Aren't you tired of it? A mocking voice came from outside the array. Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng looked over, and saw a young man with an evil smile standing at the edge of the ruins. Other than the evil young man, there were two women standing in the distance. One of the women was not very pretty, but she had a heroic aura. She carried a divine sword on her back. Her eyes shone with a sharp sword light as she blinked. The other woman was very beautiful. She wore a white gauze dress. Her face was very pale and cold, and there was no expression on her face. The three of them were Fu Ming, Lung Feifei, and Jian Wuqing. After the three of them left the Ghost King's seal, they came to the outskirts of the Ghost King's Ridge and massacred everyone they met. Fleeting Time was very unlucky to have met the three of them. She fought with Fu Ming and lost miserably in one move. If she did not have a rare escape talisman, she would have died in Fu Ming's hands. Even so, she had been severely injured and had been poisoned by Fu Ming. In the process of escaping, she met Tuo Sheng and Sa Mei, but Fu Ming and the other two caught up with her. That was why the scene in front of them had happened. How did you know? Sa Mei's beautiful eyes widened as she looked at the evil young man in disbelief. I've already set up a shielding array around you. Your messages can't escape my eyes. Fu Ming grinned. His smile was full of sarcasm and disdain. Sa Mei's face was pale. No wonder her messages were like mud sinking into the sea. She did not get any reply from Zhuowen. Uffed. Chapter 4061. Senior Fleeting Time, are you all right? Sa Mei's eyes were filled with worry. Tuo Sheng's expression was solemn. He did not say a word. Instead, he spat out a mouthful of blood essence and channeled his divine energy into Fleeting Time's body through his palm. Fleeting Time opened her eyes with a bitter smile. Tuo Sheng, I'm already at the end of my rope. Why are you wasting your divine energy by burning your blood essence? Sa Mei stared at Tuo Sheng in shock. She did not expect Tuo Sheng to risk his life to heal Fleeting Time. The cost of burning one's blood essence was too great. If it was light, one's cultivation level would drop, and if it was heavy, one's life would be in danger. Sa Mei's relationship with Fleeting Time was only SOSO. She would definitely not burn her blood essence to keep Fleeting Time alive. It seems that Senior Tuo Sheng really does have feelings for Senior Fleeting Time. Sa Mei muttered to herself as she stared at Tuo Sheng. I want you to live. Tuo Sheng's words were simple. He spoke softly and seriously. Fleeting Time struggled to push Tuo Sheng away with the last of her strength. Fleeting Time fell to the ground due to the exhaustion of her strength. You're the ones who want me to live. Do you think I don't know my own condition? I've been poisoned. There's no hope for me. Tuo Sheng, if you continue to burn your blood essence and waste your divine energy on me, I'll cut off all ties between us. Fleeting Time's body twitched in pain as she lay on the ground, but she still managed to utter the words in her heart. Tuo Sheng stared helplessly at Fleeting Time, who was twitching in pain. He remained silent for a long time before he stood up, walked up to Fleeting Time, and hugged her in his arms. I want you to live. Tuo Sheng's voice was filled with stubbornness. He did not wait for Fleeting Time to speak as he continued to burn his blood essence to prolong Fleeting Time's life. No matter how much Fleeting Time struggled, Tuo Sheng's arms were like a pair of pliers. Junior Sa Mei, you don't have to waste your divine energy. Just protect the formation plate in your hand. And I'm sorry for dragging you into this because of my selfishness. Tuo Sheng did not look at Sa Mei. He lowered his head in shame. Sa Mei immediately shook her head. Senior Tuo Sheng, why are you saying this? You and I are of the same race, so we should advance hand in hand. Moreover, the formation disc that senior brother Zhuo gave me is very powerful. I'm afraid it's a heaven-breaking Tier 9 formation. Although the three of them are strong, it's not realistic for them to break in. Tuo Sheng nodded. He glanced at Fu Ming and the other two who were helpless outside the array and felt a little relieved. At the same time, he was even more curious and doubtful about Zhuowen. A Heaven Breaker stage, 9-array disc, was extremely precious. Moreover, he could sense that the array disc, Zhuowen gave Sa Mei, was not an ordinary Heaven Breaker stage, 9-array disc. This was because the great formation formed by this disc array was much more powerful than the Heaven-breaking stage 9 great formation he had seen in Huxley. He suspected that this might very well be a Heaven-breaking stage 9-array disc. Even in the eyes of the Huxley patriarch Lu Renjue, such a formation disc was an extremely tempting treasure. Even in the Hushu clan, formations of this level were exceedingly rare. Even his master, the Imperial Dragon King, who was one of the 9 kings of Huxley, could not take out such a formation disc. However, Zhuowen had easily given such a powerful formation disc to Sa Mei, which made him feel incredulous. Could it be that junior brother Zhua is also a powerful formation Dao master? Tuo Sheng was even more shocked as he thought about it. Although Sa Mei also realized that the formation disc that Zhuowen gave him was unusual, she did not think as much as Tuo Sheng. At this moment, Fu Ming and the other two, who were outside the Great Formation, were also at their wits' end. The formation disc in Sa Mei's hand was too powerful. They had used all kinds of methods, but they still could not have any effect on the Great Formation. Fu Ming, this defensive formation is too strong. It's even stronger than the Heaven-breaking stage 9 array I've seen. I suspect that this is a defensive formation that surpasses the Heaven-breaking stage 9 array. Lung Feifei said with a frown. Feifei, your evaluation is too high. Do you think this is the legendary Eternal Level array? Fu Ming asked curiously. This is definitely not an Eternal Level array. I've seen Eternal Level great arrays from afar in more powerful realms, and I know how terrifying those great arrays are. However, there's still a huge gap between this great array and an Eternal Level great array. Feifei is right. This great formation is indeed stronger than a Heaven-breaking stage 9 array. I think this should be a half-step Eternal Level array. Jian Wuqing suddenly said, solemnly. Jian Wuqing said. Fu Ming and Feifei's expressions changed slightly. In fact, for the three of them, even a Heaven-breaking stage 9 array would be difficult to break, let alone a half-step Eternal Level array. Now, it was even more impossible for them to break this great formation. It would be a waste of time if they continued to waste time. Let's go. We can't break this formation, Jian Wuqing said decisively. That's not necessarily true. Fu Ming suddenly revealed a sly smile and chuckled. Oh, Brother Fu, do you have any other ideas? Jian Wuqing and Lung Feifei looked at Fu Ming with interest. Speaking of which, the two of them were actually very unwilling to leave just like that. In fact, they were tempted by the half-step Eternal Level array in Sa Mei's hands. Even their clan had never owned such an item. After all, those who owned such an array were basically the powerful clans in the realm. They did not know what kind of luck Sa Mei had to have obtained such a good item. Naturally, they did not want to give up on such an easy prey. Wasn't that female cultivator poisoned by me? You think it's an ordinary poison? It's a poison that I've been secretly refining for many years. It's specially targeted at the soul. It's called 9 Extremes Soul Captivation Poison. Fu Ming laughed sinisterly. Can this poison break the formation? Lung Feifei asked with a frown. Fu Ming smiled mysteriously and said, You just have to watch the show next. After saying that, Fu Ming did not say anything else. He placed his hands behind his back and silently looked at Lu Nian, who was in the ruins. Lung Feifei and Jian Wuqing were unhappy with Fu Ming's deliberate suspense, but they did not ask any more questions. They just waited and watched. After a while, in the ruins, Lu Nian, who had been coughing out blood, suddenly looked much better. His face was also rosy. Senior Sister Lu Nian, the poison in your body? Sa Mei stared at Fleeting Time in bewilderment. The sudden change in Fleeting Time's complexion caught her off guard. On the other hand, Tuo Sheng was overjoyed to see Lu Nian's sudden recovery. Although his aura was weak, he was overjoyed. That's great, Lu Nian. You're fine. Tuo Sheng could not help but spread his arms and hugged Lu Nian tightly. However, Tuo Sheng did not see the strange red light in Lu Nian's eyes. Uffed. Suddenly, Tuo Sheng spat out a mouthful of blood. His waist arched, and he was sent flying. He finally landed heavily at the edge of the formation. Chapter 4062. Senior Lu Nian, Sa Mei stared at Lu Nian in disbelief. She had just spoken when Lu Nian appeared in front of her like a phantom. Before Sa Mei could react, Lu Nian's right hand had grabbed Sa Mei's neck and lifted her up. Lu Nian, what are you doing? She's junior sister, Sa Mei. Tuo Sheng struggled to support himself with his hands. He was furious when he saw the scene before him, but Lu Nian ignored his words and snatched the formation plate from Sa Mei's hand. Oh no! Sa Mei's heart skipped a beat. She struggled to get the formation plate back from Lu Nian. Lu Nian's eyes were cold. He flung Sa Mei away like a piece of trash, and she landed not far away from Tuo Sheng. Close the formation plate. Suddenly, a cold and mocking voice came from outside the formation. Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng looked in the direction of the voice. They were shocked to find that the owner of the voice was none other than Fu Ming. Lu Nian's eyes were unfocused. He actually did as Fu Ming said, and closed the formation plate. The array Dao ripples around the ruins suddenly rippled violently, and then the layer of array Dao ripples vanished into thin air. Come here and give me the formation plate. Fu Ming's eyes were filled with fervor as he ordered Fleeting Time. Lu Nian was still in a daze. He walked stiffly toward Fu Ming. What did you do to Lu Nian? Tuo Sheng was furious. He charged at Lu Nian without any regard for his life. Fellow cultivator, extinguish the fire. Why are you so angry? Lung Feifei sneered. Her slender jade-like hand blasted out in the void. It seemed to pass through the void and landed lightly on Tuo Sheng's chest. Tuo Sheng could not react in time. He felt his chest go numb, and his body was frozen on the spot. Then, he was shocked to find that ice crystals were emerging from the palm on his chest and quickly spreading to his whole body. Not long after, his entire body turned into an ice sculpture. Senior Tuo Sheng. Sa Mei cried out in grief. She did not realize that Jian Wuqing had unknowingly appeared behind her. Don't be sad. You'll be with them very soon. Jian Wuqing's cold voice rang out. His slender right hand formed a sword finger and pierced towards Sa Mei's back. Jian Wuqing's attainments in the way of the sword were extremely high. An extremely sharp and powerful sword qi condensed on the sword fingers of her right hand, as if it was the most powerful divine sword in the world. Sa Mei's body trembled. She was suppressed by Jian Wuqing's powerful aura and was unable to move. The only thing she could do was to stand there and wait for Jian Wuqing's sword to pierce her heart. Sa Mei smiled bitterly. She knew that she could not avoid this killing move. What awaited her was only death. But what made her feel strange was that Jian Wuqing's sword finger was still unable to pierce through her heart. Fu Ming, Jian Wuqing, Lung Feifei, aren't you guys too much? We, Huxley, have given you enough face by allowing you to enter the Ghost King Ridge. Not only are you ungrateful, but you also slaughtered Huxley's men after entering the Ghost King Ridge. You're courting death. A cold and deep voice came from behind Sa Mei. Only then did Sa Mei realize that a young man in a luxurious blue robe had appeared in front of Jian Wuqing unknowingly. The young man's right hand was flashing with golden lightning. He grabbed Jian Wuqing's right hand, preventing him from entering Sa Mei's back. He was the strongest of Huxley's younger generation, Lei Ling. At the same time, several figures rushed in from outside the stone forest and appeared around the ruins. Including Lei Ling, there were a total of 6 people. The Bear King's disciple, Zhong Tua, was among the 6. Jian Wuqing snorted coldly. He flipped his right hand, and a sharp sword qi burst out. Lei Ling frowned slightly. He had no choice but to let go of Jian Wuqing's hand and disperse the sword qi in front of him. Jian Wuqing and Lung Feifei both retreated to Fu Ming's side and looked coldly at Lei Ling and the rest. "Thank you, senior brother Lei Ling, for saving my life." Sa Mei quickly bowed to Lei Ling. Lei Ling waved his hand and said, "Junior sister Sa Mei, you're too polite. You and I are both Huxley. Naturally, I can't leave you in the lurch." With that, Lei Ling also noticed Tua Sheng, who was frozen in ice, and Fleeting Time, who was standing beside Fu Ming like a vegetable. He was furious. "Yo, Lei Ling, what a big lineup. This way, all the disciples of the Ninth King are here." Fu Ming said indifferently, "Fu Ming, the 3 of you have gone overboard." Bing Yu, who was originally silent, glared at Fu Ming and the other 2. He shouted at them loudly for the first time. "Overboard? No, no, no. This is just the beginning. We are planning to destroy all the Huxley disciples in Ghost King Ridge. We've only killed a dozen people. We haven't gone overboard yet." Fu Ming laughed. Lei Ling and the rest's faces darkened. Fu Ming was too arrogant. He wanted to destroy all the elite disciples of Huxley in Ghost King Ridge. This was a blatant provocation. "Fu Ming, with just the 3 of you, do you think you can defeat the combined forces of my Huxley disciples?" Zhong Tua snorted. He suddenly took out a scroll and opened it in the air. The scroll floated in the air, and a river of stars flowed out from it. The specks of light in the river floated in the air, then immediately fell down and turned into figures. In an instant, dozens of figures appeared behind Lei Ling and the rest. These were basically the most elite cultivators of the younger generation in Huxley. "Oh, so that's how it is. No wonder we didn't meet anyone after killing some of them. So you hid them in the space scroll." Fu Ming licked his lips and said excitedly, "With just the few of you, it's not enough for us to kill." Fu Ming's next sentence completely ignited the anger of Lei Ling and the rest. "This guy is too arrogant. What are we waiting for? Let's attack together and kill this bastard. What's there to be arrogant about? It's just the 3 of you. It's easy for us to kill you." Shuwen's words immediately stirred up the crowd. Most of the young cultivators in Huxley were furious. Without waiting for Lei Ling's orders, they all took out their divine weapons and rushed toward Fu Ming and the rest. Lei Ling's expression changed. He wanted to stop them, but it was too late. The people in Huxley had already rushed out like wild horses. On the other hand, Fu Ming and the rest did not show any fear. Instead, they were full of anticipation. "Feifei, Wuqing, don't fight with me. These people are mine." Fu Ming grinned and said to Lung Feifei and Jian Wuqing. Chapter 4063. Fu Ming looked at the dozens of people rushing towards him and licked his lips. His eyes were burning with murderous intent. He stomped his foot, and a terrifying purplish-black, poisonous fog instantly erupted from his body. "Ghost Head Poison Array." Fu Ming's cold voice sounded slowly. Then the purplish-black, poisonous fog spread out with him as the center. Upon closer inspection, the shape formed by the purplish-black fog looked like a ghost head from afar. Ah, A mournful scream suddenly rang out. The young cultivators who had rushed into the ghost head poison array fell to the ground one by one. Their hands kept scratching their bodies until they were covered in blood and wounds. All of them were bleeding from their 7 orifices. The ghost head poison array was too strange. Once one was poisoned, their entire body would itch and be in extreme pain. As for the cultivators who were originally lagging behind, they hurriedly stopped their bodies and began to rapidly retreat. But Fu Ming obviously would not let them succeed. He took a step forward and appeared not far away from these cultivators like a ghost. Then his 10 fingers moved as if he was playing some kind of heavenly music. Then the cultivators who had retreated were shocked to find that the ghost head poison array suddenly opened its mouth. As if it had teleported, it appeared behind them and swallowed them all in one gulp. The strong poison affected them, causing them to be poisoned instantly and howl in pain. In just 5 breaths of time, the elite cultivators from Huxley who had surrounded Fu Ming were all dead. Only Lei Ling, Bing Yu, Zhong Tuo, and the rest were not affected because they did not act rashly. Roar! The ghost head poison array opened its ferocious mouth and roared in midair, rushing towards Lei Ling and the rest. Lei Ling snorted and took the first step forward. Golden divine lightning covered his entire body, and countless lightning bolts escaped, making him look as mighty and extraordinary as a god. Zap, zap, zap. Terrifying lightning surged out of Lei Ling's body and surged in the air, exploding into a terrifying sea of golden lightning. Countless golden divine lightning landed in the ghost head poison array and completely destroyed it. But this poison array was too terrifying. Although it had been dispersed by the golden divine lightning, most of the poison cultivators were already dead. Fu Ming, you deserve to die. Lei Ling's eyes were red. Seeing his clansmen being slaughtered in front of him, he was furious and wanted to kill Fu Ming immediately. Lei Ling did not hesitate. The moment he finished speaking, his entire body was bathed in the divine thunder. Like a god, he charged towards Fu Ming. A devilish smile appeared on Fu Ming's lips. Lei Ling, I am no longer the same as before. You are no longer my opponent. With that said, Fu Ming also rushed out. Purple-black fog surged out from his body, and this fog revealed all kinds of ugly and ferocious heads. Boom, boom. In an instant, Fu Ming and Lei Ling collided. The golden divine lightning and the purplish-black fog collided intensely, as if they were 2 worlds that were clearly separated. It was a spectacular sight in the sky. In an instant, Fu Ming and Lei Ling had exchanged more than 10 blows. Every time they exchanged blows, the energy ripples that burst out were extremely terrifying, and the surrounding space was torn apart and collapsed in large areas. And the 2 of them went all out, releasing their respective divine demons. Fu Ming's divine demon was a 6-winged black worm. This black worm's appearance was similar to a beetle, and there were 6 black eyes on the front of the hard flesh armor. On the other hand, Lei Ling's divine demon was a huge golden lightning hammer. The hammer was covered in dense golden lightning, and its aura was like a rainbow. It looked very terrifying. Following the battle between Lei Ling and Fu Ming, the 2 god fiends clashed fiercely in the sky, causing terrifying energy ripples to erupt like waves. Bing Yu silently watched the battle between Fu Ming and Lei Ling. He frowned slightly. His eyes were extremely sharp, and he could acutely feel that Lei Ling was faintly at a disadvantage. Bing Yu snorted coldly. His long hair fluttered without wind, and shadows of divine weapons appeared around him like a storm, surrounding him in the middle. Bing Yu's right foot stepped on the ground, and he shot out like an arrow, charging towards Fu Ming and Lei Ling's battle. But not long after Bing Yu shot out, he was blocked by a terrifying sword light. Bing Yu had no choice but to retreat and dodge the sword light. He looked at the female cultivator who was not far away, and she was walking towards him step by step. Jian Wuqing Bingyu frowned slightly, and he looked at the female cultivator with fear. Jian Wuqing was the most powerful cultivator among the younger generation in the Purple Mirage. Her sword Dao was extremely powerful and much more terrifying than the average sword cultivator. Bingyu, you are the only one among the younger generation in Huxley who cultivates the weapon Dao. I cultivate the sword Dao alone, and it is a branch of the weapon Dao. Now, I plan to spar with you and see if you are as powerful as the rumors say. Jian Wuqing slowly pulled out the divine sword on her back. Her footsteps were light, and her speed suddenly increased. She was like a rainbow cutting across the sky, and instantly appeared in front of Bingyu. Bingyu's expression was ugly, but he reacted quickly. He immediately took out various divine weapons from his spiritual ring. He had a lot of divine weapons, and there were a total of 108 of them. Sabers, spears, swords, and halberds. Clang, clang. Jian Wuqing's right hand shook, and the divine sword slashed out, transforming into countless terrifying sword shadows. Then, countless sparks exploded between the two sides. At the same time, Lung Feifei also attacked. Sa Mei, Zhong Tuo, and the other disciples of the 9 kings of Huxley all attacked and fought with Lung Feifei. Lung Feifei was very strong. She was not at a disadvantage against 6 people, and she was even suppressing all 6 of them. She was in the limelight for a while. After about 10 rounds, Lung Feifei was the first to emerge victorious. 3 figures were hit in the chest by Lung Feifei and instantly turned into 3 ice sculptures. Oh no, we are no match for her. Run. Zhong Tuo was shocked when he saw that his 3 companions were severely injured. He ignored Sa Mei and the other cultivator and turned to run. Zhong Tuo, you, Sa Mei, and the other cultivator were furious. Zhong Tuo was so cowardly that he ran away just like that. How could the 2 of them stop Lung Feifei? Lung Feifei looked coldly at Zhong Tuo's fleeing figure. She did not chase after him. Instead, she quickly appeared in front of Sa Mei and the other cultivator. She heavily injured the cultivator and turned him into an ice sculpture. She did not hit Sa Mei too hard. Instead, she took out a golden chain and tied Sa Mei up. After that, she quickly chased after Zhong Tuo. Soon, Lung Feifei caught up with Zhong Tuo. Chapter 4064. After Lung Feifei finished off Zhong Tuo, Jian Wuqing and Bingyu had also finished their battle. After the terrifying weapon Shadow Storm was completely destroyed, Bing Deep's figure appeared in the air in a sorry state. Slash! Jian Wuqing's cold voice came from above Bingyu. Then, a divine sword fell from above and pierced through Bingyu's body. Bingyu spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground pathetically. After the divine sword pierced through him, it pinned him to the ground. Bingyu, your weapon skills are too weak. You're far from a divine weapon king. Jian Wuqing landed not far away from Bingyu and shook his head in disappointment. Bingyu was so angry that he spat out another mouthful of blood and fainted immediately. Lung Feifei and Jian Wuqing met up and couldn't help but look up at the sky. There, the golden divine lightning and the purplish black mist were fighting against each other. They were clearly separated on 2 sides. Under these 2 terrifying energies, they could clearly see 2 figures fighting at a rapid speed. Every time they collided, the energy shock waves that burst forth were extremely powerful. Lei Ling's strength has increased a lot. I didn't expect him to fight with Fu Ming until now. Lung Feifei frowned. So what if Lei Ling is strong? He can't become an ancient star transformation. He can't be Fu Ming's opponent. Even you and I don't have a high chance of winning against Fu Ming, let alone Lei Ling. Jian Wuqing mocked. The two of them watched the battle silently for a while. Finally, the outcome was decided. In the sky, the golden divine lightning hammer was swallowed by the six-winged black worm. Lei Ling, who was bathed in the golden divine lightning, seemed to have suffered a heavy blow. He groaned, and his body stiffened for a moment. It was at this moment that he finally revealed a huge flaw. Fu Ming caught it and slammed his palm on Lei Ling's chest. The moment Fu Ming's right palm hit Lei Ling's chest, his right hand turned into a claw and pierced through Lei Ling's chest. Poison, black poisonous blood spurted out from the corner of Lei Ling's mouth, and his face turned purple. He looked at Fu Ming in pain and said angrily, "Fu Ming, you're really despicable. Every move you make is filled with poison." Lei Ling was indignant. Fu Ming's strength was actually not as good as his. However, Fu Ming's methods were too strange. He was a walking poison. The longer he fought with him, the more poison he would inhale, causing his strength to weaken endlessly. In the end, he was deeply poisoned and lost to Fu Ming. "Lei Ling, don't you know that all is fair in war? Also, I cultivate the Tao of poison. Releasing poison is one of my skills. How can you say that I'm despicable?" Fu Ming sneered. Lei Ling's expression turned even uglier, and his consciousness became very blurry. He remained silent and did not answer Fu Ming. Fu Qiong landed on the ground and casually tossed Lei Ling onto the ground as though he was throwing away trash. "Brother Fu Gong, you've really hidden your strength well. Your cultivation has already reached the half-step ancient star transformation, right? You're already very close to the true ancient star transformation, right?" Jian Wuqing suddenly said. The two women had seen the battle just now. They could see that Lei Ling's strength had already reached the peak of the fiend god transformation stage. However, he had still been easily defeated by Fu Ming. This could only mean that Fu Ming's strength was at least at the half-step ancient star transformation. "Wuqing, you've never asked before. If you ask me, I'll naturally tell you everything I know. I definitely won't hide such things from you," Fu Qiong said with a faint smile. Jian Wuqing and Lung Feifei naturally did not believe Fu Ming's nonsense. However, they also knew that even if they continued to ask, Fu Ming would not tell them the truth. They might as well not ask. "Fu Ming, how do we split this array disk?" Lung Feifei suddenly asked. The array disk in Sa Mei's hand was a half-step eternal realm supreme treasure. To them, it was too precious. It was enough to make them green with envy. Jian Wuqing also looked at Fu Ming. She unconsciously grabbed the hilt of the divine, sword behind her back, her expression full of warning. "Both of you, to be honest, our Jinshui clan wants this array disk. However, you can rest assured that I won't take it for myself. I will report this matter to the clan leader. Our Jinshui clan promises to give both of you a share." Fu Qiong said. Jian Wuqing and Lung Feifei's expressions immediately turned ugly. How could they not see that Fu Ming wanted to take it for himself? As for the latter's dignified words, the two women naturally would not foolishly believe them. Fu Ming looked at the two women indifferently. It was impossible for him to hand over the array disk. Moreover, he was not afraid of the two women. As he had deliberately concealed his strength, the two women had underestimated his strength by a lot. Now that he had exposed his true strength, even if the two women joined forces, they might not be able to defeat him. "Feifei, you're smart. You captured this woman alive." Fu Ming looked at Sa Mei, who was lying on the ground not far away, and said indifferently. Lung Feifei stood in front of Sa Mei and said warily, "Fu Ming, I captured this woman. Don't even think about touching her." Fu Ming's eyes flickered, but he smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'm not that despicable. I'm just curious. Why would such an ordinary female cultivator have a half-step Eternal Realm Array disc? It's really unbelievable." Jian Wuqing and Lung Feifei were also confused. They also found it unbelievable that Sa Mei had such an array disc. "What? This is a half-step Eternal Realm Array disc." Sa Mei, who was bound and could not move, exclaimed in disbelief when she heard Fu Ming and the others' conversation. This is your array disc. You don't know its level?" Lung Feifei frowned. Sa Mei did not hear it and was in a daze. "Senior brother Zhua actually gave such a precious array disc to me. What about him?" At this moment, Sa Mei was not thinking about why Zhuowen had such an array disc. Instead, she was worried about Zhuowen's safety. Seeing Sa Mei in a daze, Lung Feifei looked unhappy. She kicked Sa Mei and said coldly, "I'm asking you something. Didn't you hear me? Or are you deaf?" Sa Mei glanced at Lung Feifei coldly and lowered her head, not saying a word. Obviously, she did not want to cooperate with Lung Feifei. Lung Feifei was furious. Just as she was about to teach Sa Mei a lesson, Fu Ming's movements attracted her attention. Fu Ming's expression was strange as he took out the array disc from his spirit ring. This array disc emitted a rich white light, and waves of powerful fluctuations burst out from the array disc. "What's wrong with this array disc?" Fu Ming's eyes were full of confusion. Jian Wuqing and Lung Feifei were the same. They also could not figure out what was wrong with the array disc. Suddenly, the array disc shook violently. Fu Ming was actually forced to take a few steps back, and his hands could not help but let go of the array disc. Chapter 4065. The young man was dressed in black, and his shoulder-length black hair fluttered in the wind. Fu Ming and the other two were dumbfounded. They never thought that someone would appear in front of them from the disc array, especially when they saw the face of the young man in front of them. Fu Ming, Lung Feifei, and Jian Wuqing looked as if they had seen a ghost. They all looked terrified. This was because the young man in front of them was none other than Zhuowen, whom they had seen in the prison. But this Zhuowen just had to be ridiculously powerful. Even the Ghost King's incarnation was destroyed by this guy. They were all puzzled. Why would Zhuowen suddenly appear here? There must be a temporary teleportation array in this disc array. Fu Ming immediately reacted. He had studied array formation before. Although he was not proficient in it, he could feel that the array formation ripples emitted by the disc array were formed by a temporary teleportation array. In other words, Zhuowen had been teleported here through the temporary teleportation array in the disc array. Could this disc array be related to this person? Fu Ming and the other two were not fools. They immediately thought that Zhuowen must be related to the disc array. Fu Ming even suspected that the true owner of the disc array might be Zhuowen. Without a doubt, Fu Ming's guess was right. Zhuowen had given the disc array to Sa Mei to save her life. "Senior brother Zhua, you're finally here." Sa Mei, who was lying on the ground not far away, was excited when she saw Zhuowen suddenly appear. She could not help but call out. Zhuowen only noticed Sa Mei's situation now. His expression was cold as he stepped to Sa Mei's side. With a wave of his right hand, the ropes on her were cut and destroyed. "Junior sister Sa Mei, what happened here?" Zhuowen saw the severely injured Lei Ling and Tua Sheng, who had turned into ice sculptures, not far away. His expression did not look good. Although he was asking Sa Mei, he already had a guess in his heart. His gaze fell on Fu Ming and the other two. He knew these three people. They were the strongest geniuses of the Jinshui clan, God's Eye, and Purple Mirage. Before the Ghost King Ridge opened, Sa Mei had introduced them to him. "Senior martial brother Zhua, The three of them started massacring the young cultivators of Huxley indiscriminately. Most of our clansmen in the Ghost King Ridge have been killed by them, Sammy said with grief and indignation. Hearing this, Zhuowen's expression was calm, and he was not as angry as Sa Mei. Speaking of which, Zhuowen wasn't one of Huxley's people. Moreover, he had just joined Huxley not long ago. He didn't have any sense of belonging to Huxley. As for Huxley's young cultivator being killed, he didn't feel any anger or other strange emotions at all. In Zhuowen's opinion, as long as Sammy was fine, he didn't care what happened to the others. Of course, when he saw Tuo Sheng turn into an ice sculpture, his expression did not look too good. Although he did not have a close relationship with Tuo Sheng treated him with sincerity, so he had a good impression of him. Now that he saw Tuo Sheng in such a state, he naturally felt unhappy. Lei Ling struggled to raise his head and said in a trembling voice, "Zhuowen, get out of here quickly. You are no match for the three of them. Most of the Huxley's people in Ghost King Ridge are dead. Now, you are the only one who has any hope of escaping this calamity. You hide, and when the 1 month's time is up, go out and report to the clan leader about what happened here." Lei Ling spat out a mouthful of blood. Relying on his strong willpower, he supported his body and walked in front of Zhuowen. Pitter-patter. Once again, waves of golden lightning surged out of Lei Ling's body. However, the golden divine thunder that Lei Ling released this time was much weaker than the one he had released at the beginning. Zhuowen looked at Lei Ling, who was standing in front of him, with a complicated expression. He was a smart person, and naturally he could tell that Lei Ling was already at the end of his rope. If Lei Ling was hit by Fu Ming's attack again, he would really die. However, he resolutely stood in front of him to buy time for him to escape. Although Zhuowen didn't have a good impression of Lei Ling when he challenged him previously, however, now that Lei Ling had disregarded life and death for his people, Zhuowen felt deep respect for him. Lei Ling dared to take responsibility for his actions. He was much more responsible and upright than Zhong Tuo. Sa Mei stepped forward as well. She smiled sweetly at Zhuowen and said, "Senior brother Zhua, I'm really happy that you were able to save me at the last moment. But what senior brother Lei Ling said is not true. Fu Ming and the other two are too strong. Senior brother Zhua, you should escape quickly. Don't get caught by them." Zhuowen smiled bitterly. He didn't blame Sa Mei and Lei Ling. After all, when he was in Huxley, he had hidden his strength very well. The two of them didn't know how strong he was. Although Fu Ming and the other two were strong, could they be stronger than the Ghost King's incarnation? Zhuowen was about to say something to reassure the two of them when Fu Ming and the other two, who were originally aggressive, did the same thing. They retreated in unison, and then, without saying a word, they quickly fled into the distance. Their speed was so fast that it was simply breathtaking. Before Zhuowen could react, Fu Ming and the other two had already disappeared. Lei Ling and Sa Mei, who had planned to die generously, were even more dumbfounded. What the F***CK was going on? Didn't Fu Ming and the other two just beat them up until they cried for their parents and almost killed them all? They were very impressive. Why did he run away without saying a word? Furthermore, he ran away so quickly. Wasn't this a little too exaggerated? Lei Ling and Sa Mei were not fools. They couldn't help but look at Zhuowen. With Fu Ming and the other two's strength, it was naturally impossible for them to be afraid of the two of them. The only possibility was that Fu Ming ran away because of Zhuowen. In other words, the three of them were afraid of Zhuowen? Senior brother Zhua, they seem to be very afraid of you. Sa Mei's expression was complicated as she said to Zhuowen in a low voice. They seem to be a little afraid of me. Zhuowen was also dumbfounded. Speaking of which, this was the first time he had met Fu Ming, and the other two after entering the Ghost King Ridge. They had not even fought with each other before. Why did the three of them run faster than rabbits when they saw him? Zhuowen naturally did not expect that Fu Ming and the other two saw his battle with the Ghost King's incarnation and thought that they were no match for Zhuowen. Naturally, it was impossible for them to fight with Zhuowen. Zhuowen, what's going on? Why are they afraid of you? Lei Ling asked curiously. I want to know too. Zhuowen said helplessly. Let's not talk about this for now. You guys go and save them first. Zhuowen calmed down. With that, he walked towards Tuo Sheng's ice sculpture. Lei Ling and Sa Mei also reacted and hurriedly walked towards the remaining survivors. What made their expressions ugly was that although the people who were frozen by Lung Feifei still had breath, they had no other way to break the ice on the surface of the ice sculpture. They had no choice but to save Bingyu first. Chapter 4066. Zhuowen walked in front of Tuo Sheng's ice sculpture. He walked around the ice sculpture and finally stopped in front of Tuo Sheng. Lung Feifei's ice elemental power was extremely strong. The cultivators who were sealed in ice by her would have their flesh and blood fused with the ice on their bodies. Once the ice layer was forcefully broken, the cultivators sealed in the ice would die without a doubt. Zhuowen frowned. This method was too strange. Even he had never seen it before. He didn't even know how to save Tuo Sheng. Senior Zhuo, I think senior brother Tuo Sheng, and the others are still alive. If we break the ice layer, we should be able to save them. Sa Mei walked over and said softly, No, the ice layer is linked to their lives. If we break the ice layer, they will die. Zhuowen said seriously. Sa Mei was shocked and quickly withdrew her hand. She did not even dare to touch Tuo Sheng. Doesn't that mean we can't save them? Sa Mei was shocked. I can try. Zhuowen said in a low voice and walked in front of Tuo Sheng. He moved his 10 fingers and wisps of purple gold energy flowed out from his fingertips. Then lines of formation runes spread out in all directions with Zhuowen as the center. These formation runes silently flowed into the ice sculpture. Sa Mei and Lei Ling looked at Zhuowen's actions nervously. They were worried that if Zhuowen failed, Tuo Sheng would die. After about 15 minutes, Zhuowen withdrew his right hand. The ice sculpture in front of him emitted a purple gold light. Then, the ice layer on the surface of the ice sculpture fell off. Under Sa Mei's nervous gaze, Tuo Sheng slowly opened his eyes. What's wrong? Junior Zhuo, why are you here? Tuo Sheng was puzzled at first. Then, he saw Zhuowen and could not help but ask in surprise. Zhuowen roughly explained what had happened. Tuo Sheng then understood that his life was saved by Zhuowen. Junior Zhuo, thank you so much for saving my life. Tuo Sheng quickly expressed his gratitude. Zhuowen waved his hand. He did not care too much. After all, he had a good impression of Tuo Sheng. It was reasonable for him to save him. Junior Zhuo, I have a favor to ask of you. Suddenly, Tuo Sheng knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Zhuowen. His voice was very humble. What is it? Zhuowen was surprised. He did not know what Tuo Sheng's request was for him to kneel. Please save junior sister Liuyan. She's been poisoned by Fu Ming and she's not in her right mind. I know junior martial brother is very powerful. Maybe you can save her. Tuo Sheng bowed and begged in a low voice. Zhuowen looked in the direction Tuo Sheng was pointing at and saw a young female cultivator standing there with a blank look in her eyes not far away. Zhuowen thought for a moment and nodded. Let me take a look. If I can solve it, I will save her. Tuo Sheng was overjoyed. He thanked Zhuowen profusely. After Zhuowen had shown his strength and saved his life, Tuo Sheng had completely regarded Zhuowen as an invincible existence. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly when he checked Lu Nian's body. Lu Nian's body was completely invaded by a deadly poison. Her flesh, blood, meridians, and even her soul were all poisoned. Truth be told, Fleeting Time was no longer alive. He was nothing more than an empty shell, a puppet waiting to be toyed with by its master. The real Lu Nian was long dead. Senior brother Tuo Sheng, her soul has been extinguished and her life force has been extinguished. She is completely dead. Zhuowen sighed. Plop! Tuo Sheng knelt on the ground, as if he had been hit by a heavy blow. He gripped the ground tightly and began to cry loudly. I'm sorry. Junior Lu Nian, I failed to protect you. It's my fault. It's all my fault. Tuo Sheng wailed. His voice was filled with sorrow and pain. Zhuowen looked at Tuo Sheng silently without saying anything. Although he did not know the relationship between Tuo Sheng and Lu Nian, he could tell that it was not an ordinary relationship. Lei Ling, Sa Mei, and Bing Yu, who had partially recovered, silently looked at Tuo Sheng, who was crying. They all had expressions of sympathy. Zhuowen, can you save the others? Lei Ling suddenly came to Zhuowen, sighed and pointed at the other ice sculptures as he spoke in a rather submissive tone. At this moment, he no longer had any pride. To be more precise, he was completely convinced by Zhuowen. This person could scare off Fu Ming and the other two without making a move, and save Tuo Sheng the moment he made a move. To him, all of this could be called a miracle. But to Zhuowen, it was not worth mentioning. He knew that all of this was caused by the huge difference in their abilities. Therefore, he put down all of his pride and dignity, bowed his head and begged Zhuowen for mercy, just to save his companion. Zhuowen looked deeply at Lei Ling, who was begging in front of him. He did not say a word, but took out a disc formation and imprinted the formation to save Tuo Sheng on it. Activate the formation on this disc formation, and you will be able to break the ice on them. Zhuowen threw the disc formation to Lei Ling. After receiving the disc formation, Lei Ling thanked him profusely. After that, Zhuowen prepared to leave the place. Senior Zhuo, where are you going? Sa Mei noticed Zhuowen's actions and quickly asked, I'm going to chase after Fu Ming and the other two. Zhuowen replied without turning back. After knowing that Fu Ming and the other two dared to kill so wantonly in Ghost King Ridge, Zhuowen had already guessed something. The three big clans did not come with good intentions. This time, Huxley would be in big trouble. Fu Ming and the other two were the strongest geniuses of the three big clans. To the three big clans, they were extremely important juniors. The three of them might be useful to him. So how could he let them go just like that? After a while, Zhuowen's figure disappeared from the stone forest. Although Fu Ming and the other two had disappeared, Zhuowen had left a trick in the disc formation in Fu Ming's hands. He had left his aura on the disc formation, so he could follow it and track Fu Ming and the other two. Although Sa Mei really wanted to go with Zhuowen, she also knew that her strength was too weak. If she went, she would only drag Zhuowen down. Just as Sa Mei was in a daze, Lei Ling had already used the disc formation to save the rest. Junior sister, Sa Mei, do you want to see Zong Tuo? Why can't I find his ice sculpture? Lei Ling came to Sa Mei's side and asked. Sa Mei pointed to the depths of the stone forest and said, Zong Tuo abandoned us and ran in that direction. I don't know if Lung Feifei caught up with him. Speaking of Zong Tuo, undisguised disgust appeared in Sa Mei's eyes. She despised Zong Tuo's actions. She was not willing to save that Zong Tuo. Lei Ling fell silent. A trace of helplessness and disdain flashed across his eyes. Obviously, he did not like Zong Tuo's actions. I think Zong Tuo should have escaped. We don't have to look for him. Let's find a place to hide until the 1-month deadline is up. After Lei Ling finished speaking, he patted Sa Mei's shoulder and went to arrange for the others to find a place to hide. Chapter 4067. On the outskirts of the Ghost King Ridge, in a mountainous area, 3 figures appeared in a rather embarrassing state. They were panting and looked very flustered. As they ran, they would look back from time to time, as if they were afraid that something was chasing after them. In the end, the 3 of them stopped in a crack under a huge black rock. They set up a concealment array outside the crack and completely concealed their auras. Damn it! I can't believe we met this guy. How unlucky! Fu Ming punched the rock wall beside him. His eyes were filled with shock and anger as he spoke unwillingly. These 3 people were Fu Ming, Jian Wuqing, and Lung Feifei. After they escaped, they ran as fast as they could, as if they were afraid that Zhuowen would catch up and kill them. Jian Wuqing and Lung Feifei also had lingering fears. Their faces were full of bitter smiles. I heard them call him Zhuowen. Have you heard of this person's name? Lung Feifei asked with a bitter smile. Fu Ming and Jian Wuqing looked at each other and shook their heads. The name Zhuowen was too unfamiliar to them. They had never heard of it at all. This person can easily get rid of the Ghost King's incarnation. That means he must have the strength of the ancient star transformation. And from the looks of it, he's not old. He's also Huxley's younger generation. But this person doesn't reveal himself. Even we haven't heard of him. Do you think this Zhuowen is Huxley's trump card? Jian Wuqing suddenly said. Wuqing's words make sense. I was wondering why Huxley opened the Ghost King Ridge to us so readily. It turns out that he still has such a trump card. Lung Feifei agreed. Fu Ming frowned slightly. Although he was unwilling, he knew the gap between him and Zhuowen. No matter how bold he was, he would not dare to fight Zhuowen head-on. It's almost a month's time. Our mission to enter the Ghost King Ridge has been completed, although it's a pity that we can't wipe out Huxley's younger generation. But now we can only hide for now until the time is up. Fu Ming made this suggestion with a serious expression. Although he was arrogant, he still knew his own limits. He knew that if he were to clash head-on with Zhuowen now, it would be like hitting a rock with an egg. Lung Feifei and Sword Ruthless nodded their heads repeatedly. After witnessing the battle between the Ghost King and Zhuowen, they had already lost their fighting spirit towards Zhuowen. Bang! Suddenly, the sound of a huge explosion came from outside the crack. After that, the entire huge black rock trembled violently. Countless rocks fell from the top of the mountain like rain. The expressions of Fu Ming and the other 2 changed drastically. Before they could react, the concealment array they had set up outside the gap had already been torn apart. Then they saw a slender figure slowly walking towards the crack they were in. Especially when they saw the true face of this figure, they all sucked in a breath of cold air, and then all of them showed extreme fear. How did you find us? Lung Feifei's beautiful eyes constricted, and she could not help but ask in a sharp voice. Although Sword Ruthless and Fu Ming did not speak, from the serious expressions on their faces, it could be seen how heavy their hearts were. Do you think you can leave so openly after taking my things? Zhuowen sneered. Your things? Could you be talking about that array disk? Fu Ming was not stupid. He immediately thought of the array disk he had obtained from Sa Mei. He did not expect Zhuowen to be so cunning and actually tamper with the array disk. However, this made Fu Ming and the other 2 even more afraid of Zhuowen. This person was too meticulous and was so powerful. They were even less confident against Zhuowen. Fu Ming, Ruthless, what should we do? Lung Feifei had the weakest composure among the 3. Her delicate body trembled as she asked Fu Ming and Sword Ruthless in a trembling voice. This person has already blocked our path of retreat. It's impossible for us to retreat, even if we want to. Now, our only way out is to fight to the death. Only then will we have a chance of survival. Fu Ming's eyes flickered with a fierce glint as he reminded Lung Feifei, and soared ruthless solemnly. Lung Feifei and soared ruthless also calmed down. What Fu Ming said was not without reason. Now, the only thing in front of them was to fight to the death. Zhuowen silently looked at the three people's extreme reactions and was even more puzzled. It was clearly the first time they had met, but the three of them seemed to have known him for a long time and knew his background. That was why they were so afraid of him. Have the three of you seen me before? Zhuowen leaned against the rock wall, casually. As he spoke, he formed seals. Array patterns surged out and spread out densely, instantly enveloping the entire black rock. Fu Ming and the other two naturally felt the fluctuations of the array patterns. Their expressions changed drastically, but they did not dare to move. They knew that once they moved, Zhuowen would definitely attack. This was a nightmare for them. Speak. Seeing the three of them hesitate, Zhuowen's gaze turned cold. He suddenly shouted, his voice filled with terrifying killing intent. Do it! Fu Ming shouted coldly and attacked first. Waves of purplish-black fog swept over like waves. Sword Ruthless and Lung Feifei were extremely tacit. The moment Fu Ming attacked, they joined forces and rushed out from both sides. One on the left and one on the right, surrounding Zhuowen in the middle. Fu Ming was the first to appear in front of Zhuowen. He was good at using poison. The purplish-black fog surrounding him and his entire body were filled with extremely terrifying poison. At the same time, the moment Fu Ming arrived in front of Zhuowen, he also released his own god fiend, the six-winged black worm. Zhuowen stood on the spot, not moving at all. In the blink of an eye, the purplish-black poisonous fog swept over and enveloped Zhuowen. Seeing this scene, Fu Ming's lips curled into a sinister smile. He. When you fought with the Ghost King, I saw how powerful you were. I thought you were very powerful. Now it seems that I overestimated you. Even an ancient star transformation expert would not dare to casually resist my poison. And who do you think you are? How dare you come into contact with my poisonous fog? You will definitely lose. Fu Ming laughed loudly. The moment the poisonous fog enveloped Zhuowen, he knew that he had won. He knew very well how terrifying his poisonous fog was. Once he was poisoned, no matter how powerful this Zhuowen was, he would not be a match for him. Fu Ming, who had completely relaxed, hovered above the poisonous fog. His divine will controlled the six-winged black worm to enter the black fog. He wanted the six-winged black worm to kill Zhuowen in the poisonous fog and then personally bring his corpse to him. Suddenly, a purplish-gold sword light rose from the depths of the poisonous fog. Then, the poisonous fog that had spread for several miles dissipated. Fu Ming's body trembled violently, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were filled with fear because, at that moment, he had sensed that his god fiend had been killed by some powerful force, and he had also suffered a backlash from this force, causing him to feel as if he had suffered a heavy blow. Chapter 4068. This guy, Fu Ming's pupils constricted into needles as he looked at the figure walking over in disbelief. The poison fog he was most proud of could not do anything to Zhuowen. Even his god fiend was easily killed by him. Jian Wuqing and Lung Feifei were even more shocked. Fu Ming was the strongest among the three of them. They had used all their means, but it was easily broken by him. They were not fools. Naturally, they realized that there was a huge gap between Fu Ming and Zhuowen, and they were even weaker than Fu Ming. Could they really fight Zhuowen? While the three of them were in a daze, Zhuowen moved, Zhuowen took a step forward, and his entire body shot out like a bolt of lightning. The purple-gold divine sword in his hand was spitting out a blazing purple-gold sword light. By the time Fu Ming reacted, Zhuowen had already appeared in front of Fu Ming and slashed out with his right hand. The purple-gold sword light pierced through the sky and slashed toward Fu Ming's chest. Fu Ming felt the threat of death. He screamed and immediately burned his blood essence, gathering all his strength in his hands. Splat! The moment the two collided, Fu Ming's defense collapsed. The sword light did not weaken and cut off Fu Ming's hands. Blood splattered everywhere, and Fu Ming kept retreating as he screamed in horror. Too weak, Zhuowen did not chase after him. Instead, he looked at the pathetic Fu Ming with a calm expression. Fu Ming barely managed to stabilize himself. When he heard Zhuowen's words, his eyes were filled with humiliation. Jian Wuqing and Lung Feifei were already pale, with fright trembling all over. Zhuowen's strength was once again beyond their expectations. Fu Ming was severely injured in one move. They would be even worse off if they faced Zhuowen. You guys are so weak. Do you still want to fight? Zhuowen landed on the ground and said disinterestedly. His strength had long surpassed the Godfiend change. He had no interest in fighting with Fu Ming and the other two. If not for the fact that the three of them still had some value, he would have killed them with his sword. Fu Ming and the other two fell into silence. They lowered their heads and did not say a word. Fight? How could they fight? The difference in strength was so great. No matter how they struggled, it was useless. What do you want? Fu Qiong landed beside Jian Wuqing, and Lung Feifei, looking at Zhuowen warily. He was a smart man. He knew that Zhuowen had only injured him, but did not kill him. There must be a purpose behind it. Zhuowen smiled and said, I like to deal with smart people. Tell me, what is your purpose in entering the depths of Ghost King Ridge? Fu Ming's expression changed slightly. He hesitated but did not say a word. Lung Feifei and Jian Wuqing also remained silent. Their purpose of entering the Ghost King Ridge was the ultimate secret of the three clans. If such a secret was leaked, they would not be able to survive when they returned to their respective clans. If you don't speak, then die. Zhuowen's eyes were sharp. He could vaguely guess that the purpose of these three people entering Ghost King Ridge was to target Huxley. Although he didn't have a good impression of Huxley, he was more afraid of the three clans. Obviously, Zhuowen's threat did not have much effect. Fu Ming and the other two still gritted their teeth and refused to say anything. Since you don't want to speak, I naturally have other ways to find out. A fierce glint appeared in Zhuowen's eyes as he reached out with his right hand. Before Fu Ming could even react, his head was grabbed by Zhuowen and held in his hand. What are you doing? Fu Ming was terrified. He realized what Zhuowen was going to do to him. Soul Search. Zhuowen spat out these two words coldly. A powerful spirit surged out of his glabella and entered the depths of Fu Ming's head through his palm. Fu Ming was like a fish that had landed on dry land. He struggled violently, his body swaying, wanting to break free from Zhuowen's control. The side effects of soul searching were too great. Once his soul was searched, his spirit would definitely be severely injured. If it was light, his spirit would be damaged. If it was heavy, he would become a fool. I'll tell you everything. Don't search my soul anymore. Fu Ming shouted in horror. He chose to submit. However, Zhuowen acted as though he did not hear anything. He was still grabbing onto Fu Ming's head and increasing the speed at which he invaded Fu Ming's spirit. When Jian Wuqing and Lung Feifei saw this scene, their expressions turned cold. Attack! If the secret of the Ghost King seal is leaked, we won't be able to live. Jian Wuqing was the first to attack. pulling out the divine sword on his back. He charged towards Zhuowen like a sharp bolt of lightning. Lung Feifei understood the logic behind it as well. Although she was terrified of Zhuowen, her rationality told her that she had no choice but to attack right now. It had to be said that Jian Wuqing and Lung Feifei's timing was very accurate. During the soul-searching process, the cultivator had to be completely focused and couldn't do anything else. When they saw that Zhuowen was motionless, the two women were relieved and were overjoyed. This time round, they might really be able to kill Zhuowen, this huge threat. However, they did not see a sly glint flash through Zhuowen's eyes while he was searching his soul. Swoosh, swoosh. Two sounds tore through the air. Jian Wuqing and Lung Feifei appeared on both sides of Zhuowen and used their strongest killing moves. Just as their killing moves were about to land on Zhuowen, powerful formation patterns surged in the surroundings. The formation patterns were as strong as a hurricane and destroyed the killing moves of the two. The formation pattern split into two and blasted onto the two women with lightning speed. Jian Wuqing and Lung Feifei clearly did not expect this to happen and were struck by the two formation patterns. As though they were hit hard, the two women spat out a mouthful of blood and fell from midair, unable to move. Zhuowen scoffed coldly and ignored the two women, continuing to search Fu Ming's soul. Fu Ming's only hope was shattered as well. He gave up resisting completely and no longer struggled. His lack of resistance allowed Zhuowen to perform the soul-searching even more smoothly. About 4 hours later, Zhuowen let go of Fu Ming, and the latter fell to the ground weakly, foaming at the mouth with a silly smile on his face. The side effect of the soul search appeared. Fu Ming's mind was damaged, and he became an idiot with low intelligence. Zhuowen's expression was grave. After searching Fu Ming's soul, he finally knew why Fu Ming had come to Ghost King Ridge and the secret of the three great clans. As expected, the three great clans joined forces to attack Huxley with ulterior motives. They actually want to destroy Huxley. Zhuowen muttered to himself and couldn't help but be shocked. From Fu Ming's memories, he knew that the protectors of the three great domains were also going to act. He knew that this matter was serious. If the three great clans' plan was carried out, Huxley would not be able to escape the fate of being exterminated. The protectors of the three great domains were equivalent to three experts of the great carefree realm. Such a lineup was too terrifying and was enough to destroy any ordinary clan. What made Zhuowen's expression even uglier was that the true purpose of Fu Ming and the others entering Ghost King Ridge was to understand Ghost King Foam. And once the Ghost King's seal was broken, Zhuowen knew that the first thing the Ghost King would do would be to settle the score with him. I must go to the place where the Ghost King is sealed and stop him from breaking the seal. Chapter 4069. In the depths of the Ghost King Ridge, where the Ghost King's seal was located in the swamp, black fog billowed and gloomy. Bursts of strange howls continuously sounded from the swamp, and the sound was very horrifying. A figure quickly swept over and landed outside the swamp. What a powerful, gloomy aura! Zhuowen stood outside the swamp, looking coldly at the swamp that was shrouded in terrifying black fog, and his face was very solemn. The black fog billowed, revealing ferocious faces, as if they were going to devour someone. I hope it's not too late. Zhuowen was very worried and plunged into the black fog swamp. Suddenly, the boundless power of the black fog was born from the black fog. It was like an invisible giant hand that grabbed at Zhuowen from all directions. It seemed like it wanted to tear Zhuowen into pieces. Zhuowen grunted coldly, while violet gold divine energy surged out from the apertures on his body like mist, and it transformed into a protective barrier that was hard like iron that completely blocked off the black mist that surged over from the surroundings. Like an arrow leaving the bow, He shot out explosively and charged into the depths of the swamp. Human, you've got guts, daring to break into my seal. Don't think that you're a match for my real body just because you destroyed my doppelganger. Today, you're destined to die here. In the depths of the swamp, the Ghost King's grand voice rolled out, as deafening as a great bell. As soon as the voice fell, countless black fog continued to condense, turning into a huge Ghost King phantom. This Ghost King phantom was earth-shattering, and its momentum was majestic. When it punched out, it seemed as if the sky was going to collapse. In front of the Ghost King phantom, a terrifying purple-gold sword chi surged. The sword chi crossed tens of thousands of miles, and its power was terrifying, slashing at the Ghost King phantom. Suddenly, the swamp exploded with terrifying energy ripples, and the terrifying sword chi and the Ghost King phantom were entangled with each other. The sword chi and the ghost chi constantly collided, and the two great energy ripples swept out in all directions like waves. And this energy ripple was getting more and more terrifying, and the range was getting bigger and bigger. The whole Ghost King Ridge was shaking violently because of the collision between the two. The evil spirits, ghosts, and the surviving practitioners were all shivering like frightened birds. The battle lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. The collision between the sword chi and the ghost chi was indeed powerful, and the area covered almost 1/3 of the Ghost King Ridge. Zhuowen was extremely shocked. The Ghost King's phantom was much stronger than the Ghost King's incarnation, and as time passed, the Ghost King became stronger and stronger. The two of them were originally evenly matched, but as the Ghost King's strength increased, the situation gradually shifted to the Ghost King's side. Zhuowen was completely suppressed by the Ghost King, almost falling into a state of passivity. Puchi! Suddenly, a figure flew out of the black fog in a sorry state, barely landing on the ground. The purple gold sword in his hand was stabbed into the ground. The black fog condensed again and turned into the phantom of the Ghost King. Its scarlet eyes looked down at Zhuowen. Human, this king is about to break free, and you will become the first living sacrifice after this king breaks free. With that, the phantom of the Ghost King strode toward Zhuowen. Its huge fist, like a mountain falling from the sky, fell on Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen's eyes were cold, and he did not dare to hold back anymore. He released his god demon. In the void behind Zhuowen, a huge purple divine tree appeared. This divine tree was so tall that it covered the sky and the earth, blocking in front of Zhuowen. Boom! The Ghost King's fist smashed heavily on the purple divine tree, and then it exploded into a blazing light. Inconceivably, the purple divine tree did not move at all, but the phantom of the Ghost King kept retreating. At the same time, the magical purple fruits on the fruitful purple divine tree cracked, and the god demons with 3 heads and 6 arms rushed out and rushed toward the retreating phantom of the Ghost King. Scram! The Ghost King was enraged. It waved its hand, and many of the god demons were sent flying. Some of the god demons were even smashed into minced meat. However, there were too many gods and devils. They surged forward like a tidal wave, surrounding the Ghost King's phantom so tightly that not even a drop of water could escape. Zhuowen looked on with apprehension. The power of the Ghost King was constantly increasing. He knew that this was the reason why the Ghost King's seal was constantly being broken. With Zhuowen's proficiency in the Array Dao, if he had charged into the core of the swamp from the very beginning and used the Array Dao seal, he might have been able to make up for the gap in the seal. However, the Ghost King was very smart. In the instant that Zhuowen entered the black fog, it attacked to intercept Zhuowen. Just like that, Zhuowen was unable to enter the core of the swamp. The Ghost King's power also continued to increase with the passage of time. In the end, Zhuowen missed the best opportunity to enter the core of the swamp. Zhuowen sighed softly. He knew that no matter how fiercely he attacked now, it would be useless. He could no longer stop the Ghost King from breaking the seal. I have to leave Huxley as soon as possible, Zhuowen muttered softly. He did not stay in the swamp for long. After recalling his god demons, he flew away, not long after Zhuowen left. The phantom of the Ghost King finally finished off all the god demons with 3 heads and 6 arms. He gloomily looked at Zhuowen's departing figure. This king underestimated this human. I really did not expect his god demons to be so strange and powerful. The Ghost King sighed. However, this king is not far from escaping. When this king's main body completely comes out, I will definitely let this kid die without a burial ground. The Ghost King's eyes were filled with killing intent. Then, his voice gradually fell silent as he began to focus on breaking the seal. After Zhuowen left the swamp, he sent a message to Sa Mei. After receiving their specific location, he used his movement technique to rush towards where Sa Mei and the others were. After a while, Zhuowen stopped outside a remote cave in the periphery of the Ghost King Ridge. Seeing the location of the cave, Zhuowen could not help but nod. This cave was the furthest away from the Ghost King Swamp. The commotion in the Ghost King Swamp did not affect this place at all. Senior Zhuo, you're finally back. Sa Mei had already received the news and had left the cave early. Seeing Zhuowen return, she hurriedly welcomed him. Lei Ling, Tuo Sheng, Bing Yu, and a few other survivors of Huxley silently followed behind Sa Mei. Their gazes fell on Zhuowen, their eyes filled with respect. They knew very well that if Zhuowen had not helped them, they would not have been alive. Zhuowen smiled slightly, but his eyes flashed with hesitation. He was hesitating whether or not to tell them about the Ghost King. Junior Zhuo, have you caught up with Fu Ming? Tuo Sheng suddenly stepped forward, his eyes bloodshot as he asked. Zhuowen looked deeply at Tuo Sheng and nodded. I've caught up with them. What's the result? Tuo Sheng asked excitedly. Zhuowen waved his sleeve, and a figure fell to the ground in a sorry state. Tuo Sheng's eyes turned red when he saw it. Chapter 4070. Fu Ming. When the crowd saw Fu Ming, they were shocked and took a few steps back. It was not their fault. They had been put in such a difficult position by Fu Ming that they had almost died in his hands. But soon, they realized that Fu Ming was very strange. He was just standing there and smiling foolishly, saliva dripping from his mouth. He did not look like the strongest genius of the Jinshui clan. He looked more like a fool who only knew how to smile foolishly. Don't worry, everyone. I have searched Fu Ming's soul by force. He will not be a threat to you, Zhuowen said faintly as he looked at Tuo Sheng in surprise. When Fu Ming appeared, Tuo Sheng did not retreat. He just stared at Fu Ming, his eyes filled with murderous intent. When the crowd heard this, they were relieved. The respect they had for Zhuowen grew. Fu Ming was such a terrifying elite, but he was easily captured by Zhuowen. It showed how powerful the latter was. Junior brother Zhuo, this Fu Ming, can you let me deal with him? Suddenly, Tuo Sheng knelt in front of Zhuowen and kowtowed to Zhuowen. His voice was filled with pleading. Senior brother Zhuo, senior brother Tuo Sheng has always had strong feelings for senior sister Liuyan. But Fu Ming killed senior sister Liuyan. Just as Zhuowen was hesitating, Sa Mei's voice rang in Zhuowen's mind. Then I'll leave him to you. Zhuowen nodded and helped Tuo Sheng up. Originally, he had planned to capture Fu Ming and the other 2 to make the 3 patriarchs have some scruples. But Fu Ming was already a fool and was of little value. So there was no need for Zhuowen to keep Fu Ming alive. Thank you, junior brother Zhuo. Tuo Sheng will never forget your kindness today. Tuo Sheng bowed to Zhuowen solemnly. He then stood up and pulled Fu Ming, who was still smiling foolishly, into the forest at the back of the mountain. Soon after, the crowd heard a series of shrill screams. The blood-curdling screams continued for a long time. The next day, Tuo Sheng returned from the back of the mountain under everyone's fearful gazes and sat in a corner without saying a word. Zhuowen sat in the deepest part of the cave, which was also the best spot. The rest of the people silently distanced themselves from him to show Zhuowen's position in the crowd. In the end, Zhuowen did not tell the crowd the secret of the Ghost King's seal and the 3 clans. This secret was of great importance. He understood that if he revealed it now, it would definitely cause chaos among the people, and the consequences would be unpredictable. He planned to reveal this secret to everyone after leaving the Ghost King Ridge. Then, he could take advantage of the chaos to leave the Hushu clan. After all, the Hushu clan had nothing to do with him. He didn't want to get involved in this mess. There are still 3 days left before we leave the Ghost King Ridge. These 3 days are enough for me to completely refine the energy of the Ghost King incarnation. Zhuowen muttered to himself. He flipped his right hand, and an irregular black crystal appeared in his palm. It was the energy crystal of the Ghost King's incarnation. During this period, he had been absorbing the energy in it. Coupled with the rich energy in the Ghost King's Ridge, his cultivation increased rapidly. It was enough to reach a level thousands of times that of the outside world. He had a premonition that after refining the crystal, he would break through again. If I advance to the ancient star transformation, I will defeat all the ancient star cultivators. Zhuowen's eyes flashed. His celestial demon transformation already had such terrifying strength. Advancing to the ancient star transformation would only be more terrifying. No one in the ancient star transformation could compete with him. I hope the Ghost King doesn't break the seal so early. Zhuowen thought to himself and began to concentrate on refining the crystal. Zhuowen's cultivation caused a great commotion. The energy emitted by the black crystal in his hand was too pure. It was much purer than the energy in the Ghost King's Ridge. In the cave, Lei Ling and the rest were alarmed by the commotion caused by Zhuowen's cultivation. They looked at the scene in bewilderment. There was even a trace of greed in their eyes. However, they did not have the guts to snatch it. This was because the young man in front of them was not someone they could afford to offend. Time passed day by day. On the morning of the 3rd day, a ray of light shot into the Ghost King's Ridge, which was shrouded in black fog all year round. Everyone in the cave seemed to have sensed it. They ran out excitedly and looked at the sky. The black fog in the sky churned, and a faint crack appeared. A wisp of golden light shone down from the depths of the clouds. At the same time, everyone's hearts throbbed. It's almost a month's time. This is the fluctuation of teleportation. We are about to be teleported out. Lei Ling said excitedly. Sa Mei, Bingyu, and the rest were also excited. They had finally made it through the month and could leave this godforsaken place. However, no one realized that the black fog in the Ghost King's Ridge today was much thicker than usual. Almost the entire area was covered in black fog. Furthermore, they did not see that in the depths of the black fog, pairs of scarlet eyes gradually lit up and stared at them greedily. The few of them were not excited for long. The ray of light in the sky was blocked by a strange black fog. The fluctuation of teleportation that everyone felt disappeared. The surroundings were plunged into darkness again. What happened? Why is the light of teleportation blocked? Today is the last day of the deadline. We should be teleported now. Why is there no reaction at all? Lei Ling and the rest were still in a state of panic. They were puzzled. Look, there are so many ghosts. Suddenly, Bingyu summoned the divine demon and reminded them loudly. Sa Mei, Tuo Sheng, and Lei Ling then realized that the surrounding black fog was rolling. in the black fog, ghostly figures were moving faintly and were approaching them. How is this possible? Ghosts can only be seen in the depths of the Ghost King's Ridge. We are obviously at the outermost area. Why are we seeing ghosts? And there are too many of these ghosts. Lei Ling's pupils shrank to the size of needles. He also summoned his divine demon and said in disbelief. Sa, Mei, and Tuo Sheng did not speak. After summoning their divine demons, they looked at their surroundings solemnly. Boom, boom, boom. The entire Ghost King's Ridge shook violently. Then, cracks appeared on the ground, and streams of lava spewed out from the depths of the ground. Something is approaching us, and it's a big guy. Lei Ling's eyes shot out golden lightning. He looked into the depths of the Ghost King's Ridge. There, he saw a huge figure running towards them. What made Lei Ling even more astonished was that the aura that this gigantic figure gave off was simply too terrifying, especially when he saw the vague shape of the figure. He felt as if he had been hit hard. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. He quickly withdrew his eye technique and did not dare to look anymore. Senior Lei Ling, what happened? Sa Mei asked anxiously. Chapter 40:71. Ghost King. Everyone was shocked and looked at Lei Ling in disbelief. Among them, only Lei Ling had cultivated the eye technique superpower. Hence, in the black fog, Lei Ling's vision was much further than theirs. That is indeed the Ghost King, and this Ghost King is walking towards us. I guess the reason why the Ghost King Ridge's teleportation is ineffective is because of the Ghost King. Lei Ling took a deep breath and said in a low voice, Sa Mei, Tuo Sheng, Bingyu, and the rest gasped. What should we do? That is the Ghost King. A female cultivator said helplessly. Everyone was silent, and no one answered her question as they did not know what to do. Boom, boom. The footsteps were getting heavier and closer to them. As for the surrounding ghosts, they were trembling. They did not launch an attack, but waited silently for the Ghost King. Zhuowen, come out. I know you are there. A thunderous voice came from the front. It was the Ghost King's voice, and it reverberated in the sky. Lei Ling and the rest were shocked. They could not believe that the Ghost King had come here for Zhuowen. Although they knew that Zhuowen was strong, they could not imagine how Zhuowen had offended the Ghost King. After all, the Ghost King had been sealed in the sealed ground, and the two of them had never come into contact. You destroyed my incarnation and tried to stop me from breaking the seal. Come out and accept your death. Then, the Ghost King's voice was heard again. Everyone then understood why the Ghost King was looking for Zhuowen. The incarnation of the Ghost King? How did Junior Marshal Brother Zhuo manage to kill it? It was placed in the sealed ground by the tribe leader. Tuo Sheng mumbled to himself anxiously. Lei Ling, Bingyu, and the rest were also puzzled, but they were in awe of Zhuowen's strength. It was terrifying that he could destroy the incarnation of the Ghost King by himself. On the other hand, Sa Mei's beautiful eyes were filled with complex emotions. She had already guessed the reason why Zhuowen had parted ways with her and entered the Ghost King Ridge. Ghost King. In the depths of the cave, Zhuowen suddenly opened his eyes, which emitted an intense and sharp light. At this moment, an extremely terrifying aura was emanating from Zhuowen's body. This aura was like an abyss, like an ocean, like a mountain, and unfathomable. He sighed softly. In these 3 days, he had indeed completely refined the crystal of the Ghost King's incarnation. However, he had not been able to successfully advance to the ancient star transformation. He had only taken half a step into it. He knew very well that the reason he couldn't successfully enter the ancient star transformation wasn't because he didn't have enough cultivation energy, but because he didn't have enough comprehension of the ancient star transformation. As long as he comprehended the true meaning of the ancient star transformation, he would be able to advance to the ancient star transformation. Damn it, why did the Ghost King have to come out at this time? Zhuowen's face turned ugly. He stood up and rushed out of the cave. At the same time, the Ghost King had already arrived at where Lei Ling and the others were. He was silently looking down on Lei Ling and the others, as if he was looking down on ants with contempt and disdain. Lei Ling, Bingyu, and the others looked at the Ghost King in front of them. Their bodies trembled, and their legs turned to jelly. It's just a bunch of ants. That guy isn't here. Ants, it's better for you to die. The Ghost King shook his head. His right hand descended from the sky and mercilessly struck Lei Ling and the others. Let's fight. Lei Ling, Bingyu, and the others were considered top geniuses in Huxley. Although they knew that they were no match for the Ghost King, they knew that they couldn't allow themselves to be captured. They all took out their divine demons and sacred weapons to meet the Ghost King's attack. Unfortunately, their combined attack was too weak. The moment it came into contact with the Ghost King's palm, it shattered. It's over. Lei Ling looked at the scene, and his face turned pale. His eyes were filled with despair. The others also closed their eyes in despair. Rumble! Just as the Ghost King's palm was about to land and crush everyone, a figure rushed out at an incredible speed and blocked the palm. Purple-golden energy surged into the sky like a tidal wave, turning into a towering purple divine tree that stood in front of the palm. Bang! A strong collision sound was heard. The entire space of Ghost King Ridge was shattered and collapsed. The Ghost King's huge palm was blocked. The figure that was supporting the purple sacred tree groaned and retreated. As for the purple divine tree, it seemed to have dimmed a little. Why aren't you running? Zhuowen had just stabilized himself when he shouted at Lei Ling, Sa Mei, and the others. Lei Ling and the others had just recovered from the earth-shattering collision when they heard Zhuowen's shout. They all took out their flying sacred weapons and quickly fled. Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng stayed behind and looked at Zhuowen with determination. Why aren't you running? Zhuowen frowned and shouted, Junior brother Zhuo, you've done me a great favor. Although I'm not powerful enough, I can repay your kindness with my life. Tuo Sheng bowed deeply and said solemnly, Senior brother Zhuo, Master told me to stay close to you in Ghost King Ridge, so I can't leave. Sa Mei said resolutely. Zhuowen frowned slightly, but did not say anything. He landed beside the two of them. At this moment, the Ghost King looked at his palm, and then at Zhuowen. He sneered and said, Zhuowen, you lowly human. I didn't expect your strength to have improved. This exorcism power disgusts me even more. It's a pity that you're facing my real body. So what if your exorcism power has a great suppressive effect on me? I can still crush you. The Ghost King was filled with murderous intent. His mountain-like palm hit the purple sacred tree again. Every time he hit it, terrifying energy ripples and waves burst out. Puff! Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face was as pale as snow. The Ghost King was right. The gap between him and the Ghost King was too big. Even if the exorcism power had a great suppressive effect on the Ghost King, it could not make up for the huge gap between them. As the Ghost King continued to hit it, the purple sacred tree, no matter how magical and resistant it was, gradually dimmed. However, Zhuowen was very calm. There was no trace of panic in his eyes. Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng were already prepared to die. They were also very calm. Break! The Ghost King laughed complacently. He hit it again. Heaven and earth cracked, and the sun and moon dimmed. He believed that with this hit, the purple sacred tree would completely disintegrate. Zhuowen and the others would also die under this hit. However, He did not see the intense light in Zhuowen's eyes. What's more, they didn't see Wen's 10 fingers moving together, as well as the obscure runes surging out from his hands. The Ghost King's palm fell, but it did not collide with the purple sacred tree. This was because the purple sacred tree had been retracted into Zhuowen's body. Chapter 4072. Ghost King Ridge was Huxley's forbidden area. Since ancient times, there had been many formation masters in the clan who had constantly set up various prohibitions in Ghost King Ridge. These restrictive spells were too powerful. They formed an invisible barrier around the Ghost King Ridge, completely isolating the Ghost King Ridge from the outside world, forming a world of its own. After countless years of accumulation, the power of the prohibitions in Ghost King Ridge had reached a terrifying level. When Zhuo first entered the Ghost King Ridge, he had already noticed this. Therefore, in the process of entering Ghost King Ridge, he had thoroughly studied all the prohibitions in Ghost King Ridge and had a good understanding of them. Just now, when he blocked the Ghost King's attack with the purple divine tree, he had secretly communicated with the core of countless prohibitions in Ghost King Ridge with his own formation inscriptions. At this moment, he had completely grasped the core of the prohibitions. It could be said that countless prohibitions in Ghost King Ridge were under his control. The Ghost King was shocked. His right hand, and even his whole body, were wrapped in dense formation inscriptions. He was like a drowning man, constantly struggling in the formation inscriptions, trying to leave the sea of formation inscriptions. The Ghost King was indeed powerful. Every move of his was full of terrifying destructive energy. The energy of Ghost King Ridge's prohibitions and formation inscriptions was suppressed by him. However, there were too many prohibitions in Ghost King Ridge, as if they were endless and completely restrained the Ghost King. Let's go. The transmission of Ghost King Ridge has begun. We just need to rush out of the black fog, and we can leave Ghost King Ridge. As Zhuowen spoke, he rushed to the sky with Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng. There, the black fog lingered, blocking the light of transmission. Human, you have angered me. You can't escape today. The Ghost King's furious voice came from below. Then, the endless ghost chi of Ghost King Ridge gathered around the Ghost King and finally materialized into a huge black spear. The tip of the black spear and the body of the staff were in the shape of a black skull. Its empty eye sockets were bursting with scarlet light. When the ghost head spear comes out, all living beings will be plunged into misery and suffering. The Ghost King's cold voice came from below. Then he suddenly threw the ghost head spear. With a swoosh, the ghost head spear shot through the air and broke through the barrier of the formation. It rushed into the sky and chased after Zhuowen. The Ghost King was once again submerged by the endless array pattern ocean. With his powerful ghost chi, he was constantly resisting the power of the array pattern of the entire Ghost King Ridge. At this moment, Zhuowen and the other two were already extremely close to the end of the black fog. They could even see glimmers of light behind the black fog. The closer they got to the end of the black fog, the more impulsive the teleportation energy in their bodies became, as if they would be teleported away at any moment. The three of them were overjoyed. They knew that as long as they broke through the black fog, they would be able to leave the Ghost King Ridge. But soon, Zhuowen's expression changed. His divine sense had already discovered the rapidly approaching ghost head spear. Zhuowen abruptly stopped and turned around to face the ghost head spear that was flying straight towards him. His eyelids kept twitching, and his heart was covered by the shadow of death. Although he had not yet faced the ghost head spear, he could keenly sense that the ghost head spear was very terrifying and could tear him to pieces. It could be said that with his current strength, he was not strong enough to fight against the ghost head spear. But he had to face it because the ghost head spear's aura had completely locked onto him. Tuo Sheng and Sa Mei also discovered the ghost head spear below. Their expressions changed greatly, and they wanted to stop. But a powerful force pushed the two of them into the black fog. Then, Zhuan's voice sounded in their minds. "You go first, I'll be right behind you." The moment they were pushed into the black fog, they were enveloped by the teleportation light and left the Ghost King Ridge. "Boy, you're going to die. You're just a half-step ancient star transformation. If you can make me use my divine sense to deal with you, you can die with no regrets." Below the Ghost King Ridge, the Ghost King casually tore apart the entangling array pattern. His eyes fell on the figure in midair. He was very confident that his ghost head spear was enough to tear Zhuowen apart. Zhuowen took a deep breath. He knew that this was a moment of life and death. Naturally, he could not hold back. Zhuowen took out an irregular large seal from the Great Realm. This large seal was too ordinary. If it were not for the strange engravings on the bottom, most people would not even be able to tell that it was a large seal. And this large seal was the Grand Imperial Seal that Zhuowen had accidentally obtained from the fallen Star Mountain. It was suspected to be a divine artifact that surpassed the heavens. It was very mysterious. Ever since he had obtained the Grand Imperial Seal, Zhuowen had been constantly studying this item. Although the results were minimal, he had figured out some tricks. Zhuowen injected his divine power into the Grand Imperial Seal. Suddenly, the Grand Imperial Seal was like a whale sucking in water, crazily absorbing Zhuowen's divine power. Zhuowen's face was pale, although he was now much stronger than when he was at the Fallen Star Mountain, and his divine power was also more vigorous. He still could not withstand the Grand Imperial Seal's crazy absorption. After absorbing the divine power, the Grand Imperial Seal suddenly emitted a mysterious starlight. Following this, the palm-sized Emperor Tai's seal rapidly expanded and turned into a small mountain over 10 zhang tall emitting starlight. After such a long period of research, Zhuowen's only reward was to use his divine power to make the Grand Imperial Seal bigger. Moreover, with his current divine power, he could only make the Grand Imperial Seal into the shape of a small mountain. But this was enough. After all, the Grand Imperial Seal was not an ordinary item. Whoosh! The ghost head spear finally arrived and nailed itself onto the Grand Imperial Seal. Then, a scene that shocked Zhuowen and the Ghost King appeared. The Grand Imperial Seal did not move an inch, but the ghost head spear seemed to have suffered a heavy blow and dissipated into black mist. Zhuowen could no longer withstand the Grand Imperial Seal's crazy absorption. He immediately cut off the supply of divine power. With a pale face, he put the Grand Imperial Seal into his great realm. Without hesitation, he turned around and charged into the black mist and was teleported out of the Ghost King Ridge. In the Ghost King Ridge, the Ghost King stared blankly at this scene. He did not move and allowed the formation to tear his body apart. My ghost head spear was torn apart at the first touch. Where did that thing come from? The Ghost King stomped his foot, and the ghost chi turned into a gust of wind, dispersing the formation around him. His scarlet eyes shone with a strange light. I have underestimated this human again. Interesting, very interesting. Zhuowen, right? I am getting more and more interested in you. The Ghost King laughed and formed a seal with his hands. Instantly, the black mist in the Ghost King Ridge transformed into the gigantic Ghost King's body. These phantoms of the Ghost Kings gathered around the Ghost Kings and merged with the two Ghost Kings' bodies. The Ghost King's aura continued to increase, becoming more and more powerful and terrifying. If Zhuowen saw this scene, he would be dumbfounded. It turned out that the Ghost King's power that forced him to use the Grand Imperial Seal was not his full strength. Chapter 4073. Outside the Ghost King Ridge, Lu Renjue, the leader of the Huxley clan, looked gloomily at the quiet entrance of the Ghost King Ridge. The 1-month time limit was up. Logically speaking, everyone in the Ghost King Ridge should have been teleported out. Why was there no movement now? The situation was a bit abnormal. Lu Rinjue, who was uneasy, couldn't help but look at the leaders of the three clans not far away. He found that they were not worried at all. Instead, they were calm, which made Lu Rinjue feel that something was wrong. As time passed, the Ghost King Ridge was still terribly quiet. Even though Lu Rinjue used the light of transmission several times, no one was teleported out. The people of the Huxley clan, who were waiting outside the Ghost King Ridge, also realized that something was wrong. They whispered to each other and looked quite serious. What's wrong with Fu Ming and the others? Why haven't they come out yet? Yuri, who thought that victory was in his hands, frowned slightly and had an ominous feeling in his heart. After Fu Ming and the other two handed the divine soul contract to the Ghost King, they had already sensed that Fu Ming and the other two had successfully completed the task. However, the Ghost King Ridge was an independent world surrounded by dense and powerful restriction formations. The inner and outer worlds couldn't contact each other through the communication jade charm. Therefore, Yuri clan only knew that Fu Ming and the other two had successfully handed the divine soul contract to the Ghost King, but they didn't know what had happened inside. Seeing that Fu Ming and the other two hadn't come out yet, Yuri clan, Long Yenyu clan, and Xiao Zihue clan were quite anxious. Suddenly, a huge roar came from the Ghost King Ridge, and then it shook violently as if there was an unprecedented earthquake. Then they found that several lights finally appeared at the entrance of the Ghost King Ridge. When the lights disappeared, Lu Rinjue, King God Thunder, and the other experts of the Huxley clan who had been waiting nervously were relieved, because the people who were teleported here by the lights were Lei Ling, Bingyu, and the others. However, what surprised them was that Lei Ling and the others were in a mess. They were covered with wounds, and there was unconcealable exhaustion in their eyes. King God Thunder and the other 9 lords, led by King God Thunder, hurried to welcome them. Those who came back this time were basically the disciples of the 9 lords. Nephew Lei Ling, where is Zong Tuo? The giant bear king could not help but ask with a frown when he noticed that there was no one in the crowd. Luke also scanned the group. When he didn't find Zhuowen and saw Mei, he had a bad feeling. Lei Ling looked at Giant Bear King and smiled bitterly. Lord Giant Bear King, Zong Tuo has already died in Ghost King Ridge. What? How could this be? With Tuo Ta's strength, as long as he did not go deep into the Ghost King Ridge, he would not have to worry about his life. He must have killed them. It was that Zhuowen who killed them, right? The Giant Bear King roared in grief and indignation. He glared viciously at Valurium King Luke, who had fallen behind him. He didn't even try to hide the murderous intent in his eyes. Luke was furious and said, "Giant Bear King, don't go too far. If you don't have any evidence, don't slander me." "All right, stop arguing. What time is it now? Why are you still arguing?" Lu Rinjue shouted coldly. Then he looked at Lei Ling and continued, "Lei Ling, what happened in the Ghost King Ridge? Now that the deadline is up, why are you the only ones who have come out?" Lu Rinjue was frustrated. According to past experience, all the practitioners in the Ghost King Ridge should have been teleported out at this time. But now there were only a few people in front of him. Lu Rinjue felt that something was wrong. The rest of them are dead. They were all killed by Fu Ming, Jian Wuqing, and Lung Feifei. The 3 of them entered the Ghost King Ridge with evil intentions. They wanted to kill all of Huxley's people who entered the Ghost King Ridge. Lei Ling said angrily. Lei Ling was furious. Everyone was shocked. Lei Ling's news was too shocking. If junior brother Zhua hadn't saved us, we would have died. Speaking of which, junior brother Zhua saw Mei, and Tuo Sheng haven't come back yet. Bingyu, who had been silent for a long time, also spoke. His tone was perfect, and he didn't hide his gratitude to Zhuowen. They haven't come out yet. Lu Renjue replied gloomily. After saying that, he looked coldly at Yuri, Long Yanyu, and Xiao Zihui, who were not far away. He really didn't expect the three big clans to be so vicious. Huxley had made a big concession and allowed their juniors to enter the Ghost King Ridge. But the three big clans slaughtered Huxley's young geniuses without any scruples. They wanted to cut off the inheritance of Huxley. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, the Ghost King Ridge shook violently again. Everyone outside the Ghost King Ridge could deeply feel the horror of the tremors. What happened in the Ghost King Ridge? Lu Renjue asked gloomily. However, what he saw was the pale faces of Lei Ling and the others. This made Lu Renjue's heart skip a beat. He hurriedly asked them. The answer he got was like a heavy blow to Lu Renjue, and he froze on the spot. The Ghost King had broken out of the seal. At this moment, it was wantonly destroying the interior of the Ghost King Ridge. The three great guardians, Huxley, and the 9 lords were all shocked by the answer. They couldn't believe it. For countless years, the Ghost King had been suppressed in the Ghost King Ridge. Nothing had ever happened to it, and the seal had been strengthened frequently. Why did the Ghost King break out of the seal at this time? Yuri, Lung Yanyu, Xiao Zihui, look at what you've done. Lu Renjue roared angrily and rushed towards the 3 godly ships that the 3 big clans were on. After hearing the news, he immediately thought of the 3 big clans. He knew very well that the Ghost King must have broken out of the seal because of Fu Ming and the other 2. Otherwise, no matter how powerful the Ghost King was, it couldn't have broken the seal alone. Yuri and the other 2 narrowed their eyes and looked coldly at Lu Renjue, who had almost lost his mind. A faint smile appeared on their lips. Boom! Yuri took a step forward and punched out with his right hand like a knife, fiercely colliding with Lu Renjue. A thunderous sound rang out, and then Yuri and Lu Renjue both retreated dozens of steps. In the void, there was a continuous sound of explosions, and the surrounding space seemed to be stirred up by the terrifying energy. Countless fish-scale-like cracks appeared in the void. Everyone sucked in a breath and retreated a distance. The collision of 2 peak ancient star transformation realm experts was too terrifying. If they were too close, they wouldn't be able to survive. Patriarch Lu, what do you mean by this? Do you want to start a domain war? Yuri waved his sleeve and snorted. Chapter 4074. Lu Renjue's voice wasn't soft, and everyone present heard him clearly. Most of the experts from Huxley didn't know the details, so when Lu Renjue and Yuri attacked, they were worried for them. Now that Lu Renjue had told them the truth, their anger was completely ignited. They had killed Huxley's talented disciples and released the Ghost King. They had gone too far. Moreover, many of the experts' disciples had entered the Ghost King Ridge. Now that they knew that their disciples hadn't died, and that they had been killed by Fu Ming and the others, they were furious. In an instant, the experts of the Hushu clan surrounded the people of the other 3 clans with tacit understanding. Yuri didn't panic. He smiled faintly and said, Leader Lu, the Ghost King Ridge is a dangerous place. It's normal for people to die. Just because a few of your disciples died, you blamed everything on our disciples. I have to say, your Huxley as the clan is really narrow-minded. Lu Renjue's eyes were red with anger. This Yuri was simply twisting the truth and blaming Huxley for being narrow-minded. It was too disgusting. Lung Yanyu and Xiao Zihui flew out of the divine ship and appeared beside Lu Renjue, looking at him with hostility. The leaders of the 3 clans all released terrifying auras to suppress Lu Renjue. At the same time, figures with powerful auras flew out of the divine ship of the three clans. They were all experts at the ancient star transformation realm. Lu Renjue's expression changed slightly. Looking at the figures with powerful auras, he realized that the three clans had come prepared. They had actually sent out all their elites. Huxley's leader, the three protectors, and the 9 Huxley kings only had 13 experts at the ancient star transformation realm or above. The three clans weren't much weaker than Huxley. This time, they had sent out 50 to 60 ancient star transformation realm experts. The difference in strength between the two was too obvious, even though Huxley had the geographical advantage. However, if they really went all out against the three great clans, both sides would definitely suffer great losses. Lu Renjue raised his right hand, indicating for the surrounding people to retreat first. Chief Yu, don't forget that you're still in Huxley's territory. When your disciples come out, I'll personally confront them. Today, you three clans must give me, Huxley, an explanation. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving Huxley. Lu Renjue coldly snorted and brought everyone to the other side of the Ghost King Ridge. However, he did not let down his guard, and instead used his divine sense to contact Lu Yuanba in the dark. At the same time, Lu Renjue had also sent out an urgent notice to summon all of Huxley's God Formation Masters to the Ghost King Ridge in order to strengthen the Ghost King Ridge's restrictions. Yuri and the other two furrowed their brows, not daring to act rashly. This was because they felt a faint divine sense land on them. This divine sense was too strong. Although it was weak, the unique aura of a superior made Yuri and the others' hair stand on end. They immediately thought of the Realm Protector. However, Yuri was not worried. They knew that they had already succeeded in the Ghost King Ridge, which meant that they had a 70% chance of success. As long as nothing unexpected happened, their plan would succeed. Suddenly, 2 rays of light appeared at the entrance of the Ghost King Ridge, and a man and woman appeared. Sa Mei, Ta Sheng. When Luke and the Imperial Dragon King saw the man and woman, they were pleasantly surprised. They hurriedly rushed over and asked about their well-being. Lu Renjue's expression also became slightly better, but his heart was still heavy, because he had not seen the person he wanted to see the most, which was Zhuowen. Zhuowen was the person he looked forward to the most in the younger generation. He also thought that Huxley's most powerful rising genius. He did not want such a genius to fall in the Ghost King Ridge. Sa Mei, where is Zhuowen? When Luke did not see Zhuowen, his heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly asked. Sa Mei sobbed, Master, in order to help us leave the Ghost King Ridge, senior brother Zhuo faced the Ghost King himself at the last moment. Ta Sheng's face was also full of disappointment, and his heart was full of guilt. What? Face the Ghost King? Luke was shocked. Although he knew that Zhuowen was very powerful, he did not think that Zhuowen could contend with the Ghost King. That was a terrifying expert of the great carefree realm. No matter how strong Zhuowen was, how could he be the opponent of such an expert? Especially now, the dense and terrifying movements coming from the Ghost King Ridge showed how powerful the Ghost King was. Lu Renjue sighed deeply. The junior he valued the most could not escape the fate of falling in the end. At the same time, many of Huxley's formation masters had gathered outside the Ghost King Ridge. They quickly set up seals and began to strengthen the prohibition of the Ghost King Ridge. Although the Ghost King had broken the seal, the prohibition in the Ghost King Ridge had been accumulated for countless years. Lu Renjue was not worried that the Ghost King could easily leave the Ghost King Ridge. Yuri, Lung Yanyu, and Xiao Zihue felt that something was wrong. Huxley's disciples had already come out in 2 batches. Why was there no movement from Fu Ming and the other 2? Patriarch Yu, what should we do now? If we let them strengthen the prohibition of the Ghost King Ridge, the Ghost King won't be able to come out for a while. And now is not the time for our domain guardian to make a move. Lung Yenyu secretly transmitted a message to Yuri. The Ghost King must come out. If Huxley's domain guardian makes a move, we can only use that thing. Let's do it. After Yuri secretly transmitted this message, he led the elite experts of the Jinshui clan and rushed towards the Ghost King Ridge with a murderous aura. Patriarch Lu, my disciple Fu Ming hasn't come out yet, and you want to seal the Ghost King Ridge. You're too much. You're deliberately trying to strangle the geniuses of our 3 clans. Yuri said righteously, and led the crowd to launch a strong attack on the formation masters who were strengthening the prohibition. Not good. Lu Renjue's expression changed drastically. He didn't expect Yuri to be so shameless as to attack the formation masters. Lu Renjue had no choice but to lead the 3 great guardians and Hushuan 9 kings to block Yuri's group. Boom, boom, boom. However, Lu Renjue's group had fewer people after all. They could only block Yuri's group. As for the clan elites brought by Lung Yenyu and Xiao Zihue, they couldn't stop them at all. They could only watch as the attacks of these 2 groups landed on the group of formation masters. Cries of agony could be heard continuously. 30% of the formation masters were killed on the spot, while the rest of the formation masters were either severely injured or lightly injured. Xiao Zihue and Lung Yenyu didn't show any mercy. They continued to launch fierce attacks on the remaining formation masters. Chapter 4075. Jinshui Clan, Purple Mirage, and Gods, don't you think you've gone too far? How dare you cause trouble in Huxley? Do you really think that I don't exist? A figure floated out from the depths of Huxley City. It looked like it was floating slowly, but it was actually extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it appeared in front of Ghost King Ridge. Only then did everyone see that this figure was a white-haired old man. However, his eyes were very bright, like stars. Ancestor! Ancestor! The moment Huxley and the others saw this old man, they all revealed excited expressions. The 3 great clans were shocked and looked at the old man in front of them with fear. They also recognized the old man's identity. It was the Huxley Realm Guardian, Lu Yuanba. What are you waiting for? Take out that thing. Yuri's eyes hardened as he took out a transparent bead from his spirit ring. The inside of the transparent bead was a field of chaos. Xiao Zihue and Lung Yenyu also took out similar transparent beads. Lu Yuanba, who had been strolling leisurely, changed his expression the moment he saw the transparent beads in their hands. Universal World Projection Beads. Lu Yuanba shouted in shock and anger. Yuri and the others sneered and took out the transparent beads in their hands. In an instant, the silhouettes of 3 worlds appeared in the sky. These 3 world shadows were filled with terrifying calamities, including wind, fire, and thunder. What was even more terrifying was that in each world there was a gigantic figure that reached the heavens and the earth. These 3 figures were too imposing, and the aura they exuded was even more terrifying. Lu Yuanba, long time no see, you, a realm guardian, actually attacked a junior of the Jinshui clan. You've gone too far. The huge shadow above Yuri's head said sarcastically, "We kindly send our juniors to your clan, and this is how you treat your guests. How rude." The Purple Mirage Realm Guardian's shadow also sneered. Lu Yuanba's face was gloomy. He didn't expect the 3 great clans to come prepared. They actually brought the universal world projection beads of their respective realm guardians. The so-called universal world projection beads, in fact, were condensed from a portion of the power of a great carefree realm experts' universal world. Generally speaking, the power of the universal world projection bead was only 30% of the body's power. But this was still very terrifying, enough to get rid of all the experts below the great carefree realm. Lu Yuanba, it was your Hushu clan that was in the wrong first. Our actions are not against the rules of the realm. After the God's Eye realm guardian finished speaking, the huge shadow of a world descended from the sky, rumbling toward Lu Yuanba. His huge shadow, following the shadow of the world, strode forward and unceremoniously attacked Lu Yuanba. The shadows of the Jinshui clan and the Purple Mirage realm guardians also moved, surrounding Lu Yuanba in a triangular formation. Saiku Hongfei, Zhu Yangqi, Ling Xinghai. If the three of you had come here in your true form, I would still be a little wary. But if it's just your projections, I don't care. Lu Yuanba coldly snorted, his body moving without wind, and swept high into the sky. In the void behind him, an incomparably huge world appeared. This was the universal world formed by the universal tribulation, the first stage of the great carefree realm. The only difference was that Lu Yuanba's universal world was much more solid than the universal world of the three shadows, as if it was a real world. In his world, there were all kinds of terrifying tribulations, and he was like the master of this world. All the tribulations had become his sharpest weapon, under his control. But Yuri and the others smiled. They knew that the shadow of the three realm guardians was not Lu Yuanba, but their goal was not to defeat Lu Yuanba, but to delay Lu Yuanba. Boom, boom. Lu Yuanba shot out like a bolt of lightning. Boundless great calamity of heaven and earth descended from the sky and blasted on the three phantoms. The three shadows were not to be outdone. They rushed into the sky and engaged in a fierce battle with Lu Yuanba. Waves of universal tribulation energy surged, and the surrounding people did not dare to casually approach this battle group. And without Lu Yuanba's obstruction, the elite experts of the Purple Mirage and God's Eye, under the leadership of Xiao Zihui and Lung Yanyu, began to wantonly slaughter the formation masters around the Ghost King Ridge. And although the rest of Huxley's experts desperately tried to stop them, the difference between the two sides was too great, and they were basically killed by the experts of the two clans. Corpses fell one after another, and blood flowed endlessly, converging into a blood-red stream in front of the Ghost King Ridge. Lu Renjua looked at Huxley's clansmen dying in front of his eyes. He was furious and began to fight Yuri with all his might. He wanted to go over and save his clansmen. Unfortunately, Yuri only sneered. He was like a sticky candy, clinging to Lu Renjua, and did not give him the slightest chance to escape. No, how did things come to this? Lei Ling, Sa Mei, Bingyu, and a group of juniors hid in a corner, trembling in fear as they watched the cruel massacre in front of them. They were only the new generation of Huxley's clansmen. Although they had experienced many battles, they had never experienced such a cruel massacre. Moreover, the three clans had basically sent out experts above the ancient star transformation. They were too weak and would be nothing more than cannon fodder if they went up, attack the Ghost King Ridge, and forcibly break the restriction on the surface of the ridge. Yuri quickly transmitted a message to Xiao Zihui and Lung Yanyu, and the two of them naturally understood. After slaughtering all of Huxley's array godmasters, Xiao Zihui and Lung Yanyu led the group and began to attack the restriction on the surface of the Ghost King Ridge. Originally, the Ghost King Ridge was already on the verge of collapse due to the internal attacks of the Ghost King. Now it was being attacked by the Purple Mirage, God's Eye, and many other ancient star transformation experts. Under such a pincer attack, the restriction on the surface of the Ghost King Ridge began to crack, and a crisp, cracking sound could be heard. Not good. The restriction on the Ghost King Ridge is about to be broken. Lu Renjue was shocked, but he was still being held down by Yuri Yuri, and could not escape at all. Lu Yuanba also noticed the situation and was shocked and angry. He suddenly shouted and used his tricolored catastrophe sword. In his Qian Kuan world, 3 extremely powerful catastrophe energy were casually gathered by him and formed into a tricolored divine sword. Crackle! The surface of the tricolored catastrophe sword flashed with a trace of intense, terrifying energy ripples and a sharp and terrifying aura. Die! Lu Yuanba shouted as the tricolored catastrophe sword in his hand formed, and it split into 3 sword lights, shooting into the 3 world shadows. The tricolored catastrophe sword's power was indeed terrifying, and the 3 world shadows did not last long before they all collapsed. Chapter 4076. Ha ha ha. After being trapped for countless years, this king has finally broken free. Accompanied by the terrifying ghost Qi was an extremely savage laughter. At this moment, everyone in Huxley was ashen. They knew that the Ghost King had successfully broken free. Yuri, look at what you've done. You should know how terrifying the Ghost King is. After he comes out, not only will our Huxley suffer, your Jinshui clan will also face a great calamity. Lu Renjue was trembling with anger. He attacked Yuri while cursing loudly. Yuri sneered and said, Patriarch Lu, have you not seen the situation clearly? We deliberately let the Ghost King out. Before we let him out, did you think we didn't have a backup plan? Don't worry. The Ghost King won't do anything to our Jinshui clan. He will only bite your Huxley. Bastard! Lu Renjue flew into a rage and launched a fierce attack on Yuri without any regard for his life. The pressure on Yuri increased greatly, but his strength was not inferior to Lu Renjue's, so he was able to deal with it. Boom, boom, boom. Savage laughter continuously resounded in the sky above the Ghost King Ridge. Then, a large hand reached out from the Ghost King Ridge and tore apart the few remaining restrictions on the surface of the Ghost King Ridge. Then, another large hand reached out. 2 mountain-like arms supported themselves on the ground and suddenly exerted force. The earth burst open. Accompanied by rolling tremors, the Ghost King's enormous body finally emerged from the nearly shattered Ghost King Ridge. Xiao Zihui and Lung Yanyu had already retreated a distance with the Purple Mirage and God's Eye clansmen. Although the Ghost King had signed a soul contract with the 3 great clans, he could not attack them. But if they were careless and were struck by the energy shockwaves created by the Ghost King, they could not blame the Ghost King for their deaths. The 3 great clans are too despicable. In order to deal with us, Huxley, they actually released the Ghost King. How despicable. Lei Ling scolded the 3 big clans, Fu Ming, and the rest, although Zhuowen did not tell them the truth at Ghost King Ridge. However, they were not stupid. Naturally, they thought that the Ghost King breaking the seal must have something to do with Fu Ming and the other 2. Bang! Seeing that the Ghost King had come out, Yuri didn't want to waste any more time with Lu Renjue. After taking a palm strike from Lu Renjue, he calmly retreated to the side of Xiao Zihui and Lung Yanyu. Seeing that Yuri had retreated, the elite experts of the Jinshui clan also knew when to stop and left the battle. Huxley's 3 enforcers and 9 kings didn't chase after them. After all, they were outnumbered. Wouldn't it be suicide if they chased after them? The Ghost King's huge body stood on the ruins of Ghost King Ridge. His scarlet eyes scanned the surroundings and then landed on Lu Yuanba, who was in the air. It seems that you are the strongest person in Huxley now. You have passed the great tribulation of heaven and earth and formed your own unique Qian Kuan world. The Ghost King's eyes darted around as he spoke calmly. Lu Yuanba was silent. He stared at the Ghost King. The Qian Kuan world in the void behind him accumulated countless terrifying tribulations, ready to launch a thunderous attack on the Ghost King at any time. It was no wonder that Lu Yuanba was so cautious. The Ghost King's reputation was too great. Back when Lu Yuanba was just an insignificant cultivator, the Ghost King had already been suppressed in Ghost King Ridge. The Ghost King's history was too long. He was simply an immortal old monster. Even though Lu Yuanba knew that the Ghost King's strength was the same as his, also in the great tribulation of heaven and earth. However, he still had a deep fear of the Ghost King. Ghost King, what do you want? Lu Yuanba took a deep breath and asked in a deep voice. The Ghost King smiled, his eyes emitting a strange cold light. My request is very simple. Kill all of Huxley's people. The faces of all of Huxley's people present turned ugly. The Ghost King's appetite was really big. He actually wanted to destroy Huxley. Senior Ghost King, our 3 great clans will do our best to help you destroy Huxley. Yuri was smug as he hurriedly echoed the Ghost King's words. Lu Yuanba's face turned very ugly. The Ghost King and the elite experts of the 3 great clans. Huxley was really doomed this time. The Ghost King glanced coldly at Yuri and the others and said indifferently, "It's natural for you to help me. After all, it's written clearly in the soul contract." Yuri was furious. The Ghost King's attitude made him very unhappy, but he didn't dare to say anything. Senior Ghost King, our disciples should have come into contact with you in the Ghost King Ridge. I wonder if you know the whereabouts of the 3 of them? Suddenly, Lung Yenyu cupped his hands and asked the Ghost King. Yu Wenlai and Xiao Zihui also immediately pricked up their ears, although their 3 clans' plan had succeeded. Although their plan had succeeded, there was still no news of Fu Ming and the other 2. They looked calm on the surface, but they were actually very anxious. After all, Fu Ming, Jian Wuqing, and Lung Feifei were the top geniuses of their 3 great clans and their personal disciples. In order to nurture Fu Ming and the other 2, Yuri and the other 2 had spent a lot of effort. In the future, they would even pass on their mantle to them and let them take charge of such a large domain. The Ghost King said, casually, "How would I know their whereabouts? Maybe they have already died in the Ghost King Ridge." "What? You killed my disciples?" Xiao Zihui said in shock and anger. "Human, watch your words. Did I say that I killed them?" The Ghost King said in an unfriendly tone. "Senior Ghost King, please forgive me. My companion is not very good with words." He was also confused because he was concerned. "We know the strength of our disciples the best. In the Ghost King Ridge, there shouldn't be anyone who can kill the 3 of them, right?" Yuri hurriedly tried to smooth things over, but he also vaguely expressed that he didn't really believe the Ghost King's words. It was impossible for the Huxley geniuses who had entered the Ghost King Ridge to be a match for Fu Ming and the other 2. In their opinion, if Fu Ming and the other 2 were really dead, only the Ghost King could kill them. The Ghost King was so shrewd that he naturally understood the meaning behind Yuri's words. "Ha! You all underestimate Huxley. There really is a top genius among Huxley's juniors. He killed your disciples like slaughtering dogs. This boy even destroyed one of my incarnations." The Ghost King sneered. Yuri and the other 2 were finally shocked. They didn't expect that there was such a hidden figure among Huxley's younger generation. The Ghost King was a supreme master of the great carefree realm. His incarnation was at least at the ancient star transformation realm. And this Huxley's junior that the Ghost King mentioned was actually able to destroy the Ghost King's incarnation. It was really incredible. Senior Ghost King, you mean that our disciples were killed by this person? Who is he? Yuri said in a low voice. Ha! I remember that his name is Juoen, the Ghost King said lightly. Juoen? Yuri, and the others were dumbfounded. They had a better understanding of Huxley's geniuses. They were familiar with Lei Ling, Bing Yu, and the other disciples of the Nine Kings. But who the hell was this Juoen? This was the first time they had heard of him. As for whether he killed your disciples or not, you should ask him. The Ghost King revealed a sinister smile, and then his right hand suddenly pointed at a ruin in the north of the Ghost King Ridge. A burst of black chi shot out explosively, sweeping towards the inconspicuous corner of the ruins. Chapter 4077. When everyone's eyes fell on the figure, they realized that it was a black-clothed young man. It's Juoen. Lu Renjue smiled happily. He had always thought highly of Juoen and saw him as a genius who could revive Huxley. Naturally, he didn't want a genius like Juoen to die. Great, senior brother Zhua is still alive. Mei was overjoyed. Lei Ling, Tuo Sheng, and the other young geniuses of Ghost King Ridge also smiled. Their lives were saved by Juoen. If Juoen died in Ghost King Ridge because of them, they would feel guilty. Juoen, you are the most cunning human I have ever seen. After leaving Ghost King Ridge, you didn't show yourself. Instead, you hid secretly. I have to say that you are very smart. Unfortunately, I still found you. The Ghost King looked at Juoen proudly and said in a sinister voice. Juoen's face was very ugly. Just as the Ghost King said, he came out not long after Mei, and Tuo Sheng. However, as soon as he appeared, he activated the concealment disk array, perfectly hiding his figure and aura. He had been observing from outside. Especially after the Ghost King appeared, he didn't dare to show himself. His plan was very simple. When the Ghost King and Lu Yuanba were busy fighting, he would quickly leave this place and go to the Medicine God Pavilion to get the limitless longevity elixir. Then, he would immediately leave Hushu City. He never intended to get involved in the muddy waters between Huxley, the Ghost King, and the three big clans. Are you Juoen? Where is my disciple now? Yuri looked coldly at Juoen and asked, Who are you? Why are you looking for me when your disciple is missing? Juoen was in a bad mood. He didn't want to talk to Yuri at all. You are looking for death. Yuri was furious. Without saying anything, he attacked Juoen with his palm. However, Yuri's attack was blocked by Lu Renjue. Yuri, how shameless are you? You're the head of the Jinshui clan, yet you dare to attack a junior? Lu Renjue said coldly. Yuri glared at Juoen and said, Humph. In any case, your Huxley is going to be finished soon. I won't bicker with a piece of trash like you. After I kill Lu Renjue, I'll deal with you properly. Do it. Kill everyone in Huxley. Yuri shouted and summoned his natal star, charging towards Lu Renjue. Meanwhile, the elites of the Jinshui clan, led by Yuri, began a frenzied slaughter. Xiao Zihui and Lung Yenyu led Purple Mirage and God's Eyes Ancient Star Transformation experts to join the battle. Xiao Zihui and Lung Yenyu joined forces with Yuri and launched a fierce attack on Lu Renjue. In an instant, Lu Renjue was at a disadvantage. He was in an extremely passive position. The three enforcers of Huxley and the 9 kings of Huxley were also in a difficult battle. After all, they had far fewer Ancient Star Transformation experts than the other 3 clans. Even though Huxley had more people, those below the Ancient Star Transformation level were nothing more than cannon fodder. Fortunately, Lu Renjue had already activated the various formations within Huxley City. With the support of these formations, Lu Renjue and the others could still hold on. Zhuowen, Lei Ling, take Bingyu, Tuo Sheng, and the other juniors and leave Huxley City. You are the hope of Huxley City. You cannot die. Lu Renjue's voice appeared in Zhuowen and Lei Ling's minds, telling them to leave Huxley City as soon as possible. Other than Zhuowen, Lei Ling and the other juniors were filled with sorrow. They were not stupid and knew that Lu Renjue's method was the best way. They knelt on the ground and bowed to their respective masters from afar. Then they fled towards the exit of Huxley City. Junior Zhua, there is a space-time corridor in the depths of the Absolute God Pavilion. The clan leader prepared it for us. Hurry up and leave with us. Lei Ling saw that Zhuowen had no intention of leaving and hurriedly transmitted a message to Zhuowen. Lei Ling, give me the method to activate the space-time corridor. I still have some matters to attend to. I will meet up with you later. Zhuowen's eyes flashed as he replied to Lei Ling. Lei Ling was stunned. Now that the situation was urgent, he did not think too much. He passed a jade slip to Zhuowen and quickly left with Bingyu and the others. However, Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng stayed behind. Junior Zhua, my life was saved by you. In this moment of life and death, I will go wherever you go, Tuo Sheng said seriously. Although Sa Mei did not say anything, her eyes shone with a determined light, showing her determination to stay. Zhuowen felt a headache coming on. He knew that the two of them had misunderstood his intentions. He did not stay because of Huxley. The main reason was that he had not obtained the limitless longevity elixir yet. However, looking at the shocking battle in the distance, Huxley had sent more and more cultivators to participate in the battle. At such a dangerous time, he could not leave Sa Mei and Tuo Sheng behind. Both of you, please excuse me. Zhuowen suddenly attacked and knocked out the two of them. After sending them into the great world, he took a deep look at Lu Renjue and the others who were fighting bitterly. He did not go to help. Instead, he rushed out and headed towards the Medicine Divine Pavilion. Kakik, Zhuowen, don't think that you can leave so easily. The Ghost King let out a sinister laugh, and its huge palm suddenly grabbed at Zhuowen. He had been paying attention to Zhuowen all this time. Seeing that Zhuowen was about to leave, he naturally would not let him go so easily. Humph! Ghost King, don't you dare touch my people. The moment the Ghost King attacked Zhuowen, Lu Yuanba also attacked. He stomped his right foot, and a terrifying tribulation power turned into a sword, piercing through the Ghost King's right hand. Lu Yuanba descended from the sky, bringing with him the shadow of a huge Qian Kuan world. He was like a god or a demon, unstoppable. The Ghost King was furious. He knew that with Lu Yuanba blocking his way, there was nothing he could do to Zhuowen. After all, Lu Yuanba could be said to be an elite of the Qian Kuan Great Tribulation. Although he was not necessarily stronger than the Ghost King, he was still an extremely difficult opponent. The Ghost King did not dare to be distracted. Boom, boom, boom. The two supreme experts of the Great Carefree Realm finally began their first official battle. The experts of the Great Carefree Realm were too terrifying. The aftermath of their battle continued to spread. The space of the 100th level of Hushu City began to collapse gradually, forming black, hole-like nothingness. As the battle between the two became more and more terrifying, the entire Hushu City began to be affected. The space of each level of Hushu City was independent, but now they were all affected and began to collapse gradually. Chapter 4078. This space, unable to withstand the battle between the two experts of the Great Carefree Realm, began to shatter into pieces. Zhuowen was shocked. The experts of the Great Carefree Realm were so powerful. Just the aftermath of the collision was like the power of the heavens, which made people tremble with fear. The four of you split into two groups and chase after Zhuowen and Lei Ling. Be sure to kill them all. Yuri naturally noticed the fleeing Lei Ling, Zhuowen, and the others. He immediately ordered the four experts of the ancient star transformation realm. The four experts nodded silently, and then quickly withdrew from the battle. Two of them chased after Zhuowen, and the other two chased after Lei Ling, Lu Renjue, and the others naturally noticed the four experts sent by Yuri. Their faces changed greatly, knowing that these four people should be chasing after Zhuowen and Lei Ling. Unfortunately, they were powerless. Under the siege of the elite experts of the three clans, they could barely protect themselves. It was impossible for them to free themselves to stop the four experts. Zhuowen, Lei Ling, you must escape. Lu Renjue prayed in his heart as he fought the three clan leaders with all his strength. He was very clearly aware that after this battle, it was very likely that the Hushu clan would be wiped out from the 100 territories, whereas Zhuowen, Lei Ling, and the other juniors had become the hope of the Hushu clan to make a comeback in the future. Whoosh! While the battle in the Ghost King Ridge was in full swing, a streamer quickly arrived at the Medicine Divine Pavilion. At this moment, the mountains surrounding the Medicine Divine Pavilion were still shattered into countless pieces of gravel. However, because the Medicine Divine Pavilion was protected by a large formation, it was not damaged much and still stood in the middle of the gravel. The Medicine Divine Pavilion had long been deserted. The guards and pharmacists here had already received the news and fled for their lives. Zhuowen silently looked at the Medicine Divine Pavilion, and a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. Huxley had reached the end of his road. The Medicine God's Pavilion was Huxley's most precious treasure. There were many precious elixirs stored inside. They were the result of Huxley's countless years of accumulation. Taking advantage of the chaos, Zhuowen knew that he had a chance to take over the entire Medicine Divine Pavilion. Zhuowen had always been a decisive person. Once he made a decision, he would not hesitate. Thus his hands reached out into the void, and his 10 fingers moved together, forming a series of complicated hand seals. Not long after, the huge Medicine Divine Pavilion shrunk to the size of a palm under the influence of the runes and fell into Zhuowen's palm. As if sensing something, Zhuowen abruptly raised his head and looked behind him. In the sky behind him, 2 streaks of flowing light were rapidly flying towards him. Their momentum was menacing and murderous. With a flip of his right hand, Zhuowen stored the Medicine Divine Pavilion into his parallel world. He looked coldly at the 2 figures who had landed in front of him. One of them was a white-haired old man, and the other was a skinny middle-aged man. Zhuowen had some impression of these 2. They seemed to be ancient star transformation realm cultivators from the 3 great clans. From their auras, he could tell that they were both at the early stage of the ancient star transformation realm. He's just a half-step ancient star transformation realm ant. The clan leader has sent the 2 of us to chase after this piece of trash. He really thinks too highly of him. When the skinny middle-aged man saw that Zhuowen was alone, he could not help but frown. The white-haired old man looked around, then looked at Zhuowen and asked in a low voice, "This should be where the Medicine Divine Pavilion is, right? Did you take the Medicine Divine Pavilion? Oh, you must be talking about this, right?" Zhuowen's lips curled into a sinister smile. He opened his right hand, and the palm-sized Medicine Divine Pavilion appeared in his palm. The skinny middle-aged man and the white-haired old man immediately revealed greedy expressions. They knew how valuable the Medicine Divine Pavilion was. It was an important place that stored all the divine medicines of the entire clan. There were so many divine medicines that it could provide for the entire clan. "Brat, hand the medicine divine pavilion to us, and we can be merciful and let you take your own life." The skinny middle-aged man said sinisterly, "Hand over the medicine divine pavilion? Take my own life?" Zhuowen had a strange look in his eyes. He then shook his head with a cold smile and said, "You think you're worthy?" The skinny middle-aged man was furious. This brat was too arrogant. He was just a half-step ancient star transformation realm cultivator, and yet he dared to be so arrogant. "Brat, I wanted you to take your own life so that you can die a quick death. Unfortunately, you don't know what's good for you. Since that's the case, I'll slowly play you to death and make you wish you were dead." As he spoke, the skinny middle-aged man attacked. He only casually threw out a palm strike. A huge amount of energy condensed in the air, forming a huge palm of energy. He didn't even release his natal star because the young man in front of him was too weak. He didn't even need to use his full strength. The white-haired old man crossed his arms and looked at the scene coldly. A mocking smile appeared on his face. He also didn't think much of Zhuowen. Therefore, after the skinny middle-aged man attacked, he stood aside and watched the show. "You're the one who's courting death." Zhuowen shook his head and waved his sleeve. Before the skinny middle-aged man's palm of energy could land, it collapsed. At the same time, Zhuowen's right hand formed two fingers into a sword and pointed at the air. A purplish gold energy rushed out from the tip of his finger and turned into a purplish gold beam of light that shot toward the skinny middle-aged man's forehead. The skinny middle-aged man was shocked. He didn't expect that his attack would be so easily neutralized by Zhuowen. Was this something that an ordinary half-step ancient star transformation realm cultivator could do? Not good. The skinny middle-aged man's face completely changed when he felt the terrifying aura of the purplish gold energy. He didn't even think about it and took out his natal star to block in front of him. Bang! The purplish gold energy landed on the natal star, and then, under the skinny middle-aged man's shocked gaze, the energy pierced through his natal star and into his forehead. How is this possible? My life's solitary star actually couldn't block one move from you, and the skinny middle-aged man let out an unwilling roar. The natal star in front of him dissipated, and he collapsed to the ground. His soul was destroyed, and his aura was cut off. Zhuowen's expression was calm. The skinny middle-aged man in front of him was even weaker than Luke. Back then, he was able to defeat Luke when he was only in the middle stage of the fiend god transformation realm. Now that he was a half-step ancient star transformation realm cultivator, his strength was comparable to a peak ancient star transformation realm cultivator. It was not difficult for him to kill the skinny middle-aged man, who was weaker than Luke in one move. Run! When the white-haired old man saw this scene, he was so scared that he wet his pants and scrambled to escape into the distance. Zhuowen looked coldly at the back of the white-haired old man. He raised his hand again and pointed at the air. A purplish gold energy shot out again and pierced through the back of the old man's head in the blink of an eye. The white-haired old man didn't even have time to scream before he fell to the ground and stopped breathing. After dealing with these two people, Zhuowen was neither sad nor happy. He used his movement technique and rushed toward the Supreme Temple. Hushu City was too dangerous. He had to leave this place as soon as possible, especially when he felt the space around him crumbling faster and faster. His determination to leave grew stronger. Chapter 4079. Outside of Supreme Divine Hall, Lei Ling, Bingyu, and a few others were in a tough battle. They were covered in injuries and looked miserable. Their opponents were two black-robed elders. The two black-robed elders flashed around Lei Ling and the others like a gust of wind, appearing and disappearing unpredictably like ghosts. Every time they flashed, they would be able to unleash an extremely terrifying attack, causing Lei Ling, Bingyu, and the rest to be exhausted. The injuries on their bodies also increased. Lei Ling and Bingyu were the strongest among them, so they were the main targets of the two elders. Therefore, their injuries were the most severe. Zhuowen recognized at a glance that the two black-robed elders were the same as the two who were chasing after him. They were ancient star transformation experts from the three big clans. Moreover, he could tell that the two elders were obviously toying with Lei Ling and the others. After all, the two ancient star transformation experts had joined forces. Even if Lei Ling, Bingyu, and the others joined forces, they would not be a match for them. Junior Zhuo. Lei Ling and the others noticed Zhuowen, who had suddenly appeared, and could not help but shout in surprise. They were really happy from the bottom of their hearts. Zhuowen's powerful performance in Ghost King Ridge was still deeply imprinted in their minds. In their eyes, although Zhuowen's cultivation was not very high, his strength was definitely above ancient star transformation. What's going on? Isn't this guy the target of Long Yao and Zhu Wen? When the two black-robed elders saw Zhuowen, they could not help but be surprised. Long Yao and Zhu Wen, who the two black-robed elders were talking about, were the two who were chasing after Zhuowen. Obviously, in the two elders' hearts, Zhuowen should be a dead man at that moment. However, he had appeared in front of them at that moment. Just as the two black-robed elders were confused and deep in thought, Zhuowen had already moved. He was like an indomitable god. Surging violet gold energy surged from his body, and then he shot out at an extremely fast speed. Whoosh, whoosh. In the blink of an eye, Zhuowen appeared before the two black-robed old men. After that, he raised his right hand and formed two fingers into the shape of a sword before suddenly pointing it towards one of the black-robed old men. Junior brother Zhuo, you have to be careful. The two of them are experts in the combo attack technique, and their coordination is very good. Lei Ling hurriedly reminded. Your reminder came a little too late. This brat really didn't know what was good for him. He actually rushed up to court death like this. Then we will fulfill your wish. The two black-robed old men laughed strangely. Then the two of them suddenly separated. One of the black-robed old men charged towards Zhuowen, his right hand clenched into a fist to meet Zhuowen's attack. At the same time, another black-robed old man turned into a shadow and unknowingly appeared behind Zhuowen. His right hand formed a claw and grabbed at Zhuowen's Tianling acupoint. At this moment, Zhuowen was being pincered by the two black-robed elders. There was no way he could escape. Junior brother Zhuo is too reckless. He shouldn't have gone up alone. He should have joined forces with us to fight against the enemy. Bingyu's face changed drastically. Although he acknowledged that Zhuowen had the strength of an ancient star transformation, that didn't mean that Zhuowen had the strength to fight against two ancient star transformations. You really are a fool who doesn't know what's good for you. You dare to attack us brothers without even considering your own strength. The black-robed old man, who was facing Zhuowen, laughed wantonly. His right fist was like a bolt of lightning as it violently collided with Zhuowen's sword fingers. In his opinion, this fist was enough to smash Zhuowen's right hand into pieces. Suddenly, a shrill cry rang out. Zhuowen's fingertips shot out a purplish gold energy. The moment it came into contact with the black-robed old man's fist, it was like a grinder that crushed the black-robed old man's right fist into minced meat. The black-robed old man's face was filled with shock and disbelief. He held onto his broken right arm and wanted to retreat. But what he saw was a pair of cold eyes filled with killing intent. Zhuowen fully utilized the take advantage of your weakness tactic. He once again raised his finger and pointed at the black-robed old man's forehead. The purplish gold energy shot out from his fingertips was too fast. In the blink of an eye, it pierced through the black-robed old man's forehead. The black-robed old man stared at Zhuowen in disbelief. He had never imagined that he would be defeated, and so cleanly at that, he could feel his soul slowly dissipating in the depths of his mind. He knew that his soul had completely collapsed. He was finished. How can you be so strong? The black-robed old man stared at Zhuowen. As he spoke, his corpse fell from the sky. In the instant that Zhuowen dealt with the black-robed old man, the other black-robed old man's attack had already landed on Zhuowen's back. In just a breath's time, his claws would have pierced through Zhuowen's back. His heart would have been crushed. On the other hand, Zhuowen remained motionless, but the corner of his mouth revealed a mocking smile. After that, the black-robed old man's claw completely stopped at Zhuowen's back. This was because terrifying formation markings were like shackles that firmly restrained his claw, making it impossible for him to move at all. Restriction? When did you set it up? The black-robed old man was shocked and could not help but exclaim. This was because he could feel that this restriction was extremely powerful. It was at least a heaven-breaking level 9 restriction. When I attacked, I used my left hand to set it up temporarily. Zhuowen slowly turned around, raised his right hand slowly, and pointed at the old man's forehead. After the black-robed old man's right hand was restrained, it completely triggered the restriction on the surface of Zhuowen's body, completely imprisoning his entire body in midair. It was difficult for him to even move a finger. You're a heaven-breaking level 9 divine array master. The black-robed old man was finally terrified. This lad was able to set up such a terrifying restriction in such a short time. He was at least a heaven-breaking level 9 divine array master. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to set up a restriction that could imprison him in such a short time. You have too many questions. Go in peace. Zhuowen shook his head. His finger landed on the old man's forehead and destroyed his spiritual soul. Zhuowen casually waved his sleeve and threw the old man's corpse on the ground. Then he walked to Lei Ling and the others. Lei Ling, Bingyu, and the others were already stunned. Although they knew that Zhuowen was powerful, they did not expect him to be this powerful, especially Lei Ling. He looked at Zhuowen seriously. The strength that Zhuowen had displayed was on par with his master, the Divine Thunder Emperor. Moreover, he felt that Zhuowen might still be hiding a part of his strength. If he were to show his full strength, how powerful would he be? Zhuowen, who are you?